Chapter 1479. Ooh. The purple-robed young man was furious. He looked at Yi Shiwen's position and glared at him. It was Yi Shiwen who made a move just now. Otherwise, his slap would have been enough to smash the head of Green Conch directly. Needless to say, Green Conch's attack was ruthless. Let people go when possible. It's just a small quarrel. There's no need to be so ruthless, Yi Shiwen said with a faint smile, as if he had a card up his sleeve. Who are you? The complexion of the purple-robed youth changed, but he didn't continue to be aggressive. Perhaps Yi Shiwen's casual attack had given him a great shock. His attack was very sudden, but Yi Shiwen was able to save him at the critical moment. The difficulty of this feat was not small at all. He's just a nobody. Yi Shiwen grinned and said. However, he was secretly startled in his heart. This imperial court struggle was probably much more intense than he had imagined. No matter what, this purple-robed young man was an existence that had stepped into the fourth level of the Sky Realm. He was more tyrannical than the Shura City Lord and the others that he had killed before. But even so, he was still forced to come to the 10th realm to look for opportunities. In other words, with his cultivation, he was not confident that he could obtain the quota and qualification to enter the imperial court in the other 9 realms. There would be many people like this in the end, only more. At that time, the competition in the 10th realm would not be any better. There were many geniuses from the noble clans that came from other realms. There were also many geniuses among the rogue cultivators. There were only 10 spots in the Nightmare Realm, and it could not withstand such a competition. Many people said that these rogue cultivators were just there to serve as a foil. These words were unpleasant to hear, but it was still petrifying. The purple-robed young man's expression changed. In the end, he did not decide to attack. He only said coldly, "Limitless Star Palace, Wei Tianxiang." The 30-years-old young man's expression suddenly changed. As expected, he was born in the Ho clan. Limitless Star Palace was also one of the 28 Ho clans of the human race. Their forces were spread throughout the starry sky, and among the 28 Ho clans, they were ranked extremely high. Even if this Wei Tianxiang was only one of the people who was forced to come to the 10th realm, for many rogue cultivators in the 10th realm, he was still an unreachable existence. Yi Shiwen smiled and didn't say anything. The Limitless Star Palace had a great background, but it wasn't enough to scare him. Don't forget, he still had the Yi clan behind him. Wei Tianxiang was probably not too proud among the many geniuses of the Yi clan, or else he would not have been forced to come to the 10th realm to fight for a place. However, he was different. As he had stepped into the Heaven tier, the Yi clan had practically nurtured him as one of the 5 hegemons. Even if he had to fight them head-on, he had nothing to fear. "It's an honor to meet you at last." Yi Shiwen's mouth said, "An honor to meet you," but he didn't even cup his hands in obeisance. It was obvious that he didn't feel anything. Seeing that his origin couldn't scare Yi Shiwen, his complexion changed slightly. He seemed to be thinking about Yi Shiwen's origin and said, "Mountains and rivers will meet again. There will be a day when we will meet again in the 10th world." Yi Shiwen sneered. Was this a warning to him? He was the kind of person who could be persuaded by reason, but not cowed by force. "See you later." Yi Shiwen also did not show any weakness and said. Wei Tianxiang didn't say much. His complexion was ugly and his killing intent was revealed. He locked onto Yi Shiwen for a moment and then left. Very soon, he left the tea house with his group of people. The tea house, which had quietened down because of the confrontation between these two people, suddenly became lively again. Although they dared to look down on the geniuses of the royal marquis clans when they were chatting, in reality, they were just a group of commoners at the bottom of the hierarchy. How could they be compared to these geniuses? If Wei Tianxiang was angry and slaughtered them all, there would be elders who would stand up for him. Their deaths would be in vain. And this Yi Shiwen didn't look like a good person either. After Wei Tianxiang reported his sect, he didn't give in at all. These two people aren't simple. The Limitless Star Palace that Wei Tianxiang belongs to is one of the 28 marquis clans. They have always been tyrannical. Moreover, their foundation is in the endless void. They are the closest to the imperial court and have always been an extremely powerful force. Even if Wei Wuji doesn't have an advantage in front of the geniuses of the other marquis clans, he is still a colossus among these individual cultivators. I'm afraid that this time, he will snatch a place. In this person, although I don't know his origin, he was able to rescue someone from Wei Tianxiang's hands and make Wei Tianxiang have some misgivings. I'm afraid that he is not a simple character. He may occupy another place. Moreover, I think that there will be many geniuses who will cross over to compete for a place. On the contrary, there will be more. When the time comes, it's hard to say how many positions these individual cultivators can keep. Just watch. No matter how they compete, it has nothing to do with us. Instead, there will be a good show to watch. Qing Luo, you don't know how to behave. At this time, the young man in his 30s suddenly shouted. I'm sorry. The little lowly Qing Luo seemed to have finally realized that she had caused a lot of trouble. But that guy is really a bit too hateful. How can he say that? Because he has this strength. At this time, Yi Shiwen couldn't help but say, even if he really participated in the 10th realm selection as you said, even if he is not sure in other realms, it is enough to surpass the majority of people. At this time, the young man in his 30s stood up and said to Yi Shiwen, I'm Sun Zisher. This is my junior sister, Qing Luo. This is my junior brother, Lu Zifan. We are all from the Celestial Palace. Yi Shiwen recalled a little and immediately remembered the origin of the Celestial Palace. It was also a relatively large individual cultivator sect with hundreds of thousands of disciples. It was not a small force. Naturally, it couldn't be compared with a marquee clan like the Yi family. However, how many marquee clans like this were out there? So it's the Celestial Palace. Yi Shiwen said and cupped his hands. May I know your surname, brother? Asked Sun Zisher. My surname is Yi. My name is Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen said with a faint smile. He did not hide anything. He was not afraid of anything. He didn't tell Wei Tianxiang, just now not because he was afraid, but because he was simply too lazy to say. Yi. Sun Zisher suddenly thought of the Yi family. The 28 marquee clans were very famous. Any one of their names was enough to shock the world. The Yi family was also one of them. How could they not know? Yi Shiwen. Are you the Yi Shiwen ranked 20th in the Hidden Dragon list? At this time, Qing Luo took the lead to ask. Compared to Sun Zisher, who thought of the giant Yi family, she only thought of the Hidden Dragon list that she saw before. At this time, Sun Zisher and Lu Zifan finally remembered that there was such a list. After comparing it one by one, the two finally understood why Yi Shiwen was not afraid of Wei Tianxiang. The Limitless Star Palace was indeed powerful, but the Yi family was also among the marquee clans. They were not inferior to the Limitless Star Palace. Naturally, they did not need to be afraid of the Limitless Star Palace. Not to mention that Yi Shiwen was ranked 20th in the Hidden Dragon list. This in itself was enough to see Yi Shiwen's tyrannical strength and talent. Although there were many geniuses in the Hidden Dragon list, there were only 200 of them. Moreover, this number also included the Hidden Dragon list's substitute list. If only the official list was taken into account, then there would only be a mere 100 people. There were countless young experts. Moreover, there were also the experts of the Demon Race, the Sea Race, and the 100 Clan Alliance. On average, there were only a few dozen people in each race. Therefore, it was already an incredible thing for Yi Shiwen to be ranked among these dozens of people. These hidden dragons and young masters might not be too outstanding now, but after a few hundred years, these young masters would be able to call the wind and summon the rain. Being able to be ranked among them, Yi Shiwen naturally had something to be proud of. No matter how powerful Wei Tianxiang was in front of this person, he was not qualified to be bullied. Looking at Wei Tianxiang's cold appearance just now, and then looking at Yi Shiwen's appearance, they couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Both of them were from noble clans, but the demeanor of both sides was like heaven and earth. If there is no duplicate name, then it should be me. Yi Shiwen nodded and said, Wow, I'm rich. I'm really rich. I didn't expect to see a celebrity on the list here. Green Luo suddenly became excited as if she had seen something incredible. It was as if she had suddenly seen a legendary character appear in front of her. And it was a living one. This made Yi Shiwen a little embarrassed. Although he had some fame on the Hidden Dragon list, it was actually nothing in the eyes of these young masters. It could almost be said that there was a generation gap between them, and he had not encountered such a situation again. Green Luo, don't mess around. Sun Zisher quickly reprimanded her. He was also having a headache when dealing with this naughty junior sister. If Yi Shiwen hadn't intervened, then this matter might have ended a moment ago. Now, if Yi Shiwen was angered, then what would happen? It doesn't matter. Yi Shiwen didn't care. He was not that stingy. However, being treated like a rare animal made him a little embarrassed. Are you going to participate in the 10th selection? Yi Shiwen asked. And Sun Zisher nodded. Yi Shiwen, why aren't you with your Yi family? At this time, Green Luo asked. Sun Zisher's face changed slightly. Didn't he learn his lesson just now? Just like Wei Tianxiang, since he didn't choose to be with the Yi family, he must want to compete for the quota of the 10th realm. Even if Yi Shiwen was powerful among the younger generation, it was impossible to compare with these young masters who were hundreds of years older than them, especially those top heaven's pride who were not inferior to him. The safest way was to come to the 10th realm. He looked at Yi Shiwen nervously, for fear that Yi Shiwen would turn hostile, but he did not expect Yi Shiwen to give an answer that almost made them spit out salt soda. I was late, so I didn't catch up with the Yi family's main force. Now I can only choose to enter the 10th realm first, and then consider breaking through the world barrier to meet with them. Chapter 1480. I was late, so I couldn't catch up with the Yi clan's main force. Now I can only choose to enter the 10th realm first, and then consider breaking through the world barrier to meet up with them. Yi Shiwen said with a smile. He didn't care too much about this. Since we are going to the 10th realm, let's go together. That's good. We can take care of each other, Sun Zisher said. Shortly after Wei Tianxiang left, they took a short break and quickly rushed to the passage of Imperial Court. The passage of Imperial Court had been blocked by many soldiers, all of whom were above the celestial realm. They didn't pay attention to them at all. Under the majesty of Imperial Court, no one could overturn the sky. After informing the purpose of their visit, the guarding soldiers didn't say much and immediately opened a path to the trial field, not directly through the interior of Imperial Court. Although they were a little regretful that they couldn't go to Imperial Court, they didn't say much at this time. When the four of them came out of the transmission array, they found that there was a hubbub of voices around them. This was not a small world. In the center of this small world, there was an endless mountain range, and there was a very large mountain peak. It was unknown who had shaved off the peak, forming a very large square. Young talents who were transmitted from all over the world would go up the mountain to the square, waiting for the opening of the final trial. Yi Shiwen and the others quickly followed the crowd to the square on the mountain, but when they walked halfway up the mountain, they found that the entire team had stopped. Yi Shiwen felt a little strange and immediately looked over. He saw that the entire mountain belly was slightly distorted and there were bursts of fluctuations. Many people walked out automatically after walking in for a short while, and there was no way to continue forward. Soon someone recognized it. Damn, it's an illusion array. These words immediately caused many masters present to be filled with righteous indignation. Although they were all individual cultivators, they were worthy of being the top geniuses of their respective places. Now, someone actually set up an illusion array to play tricks on them. It was simply intolerable. Damn, who dares to set up an illusion array to play tricks on us? Come out if you have the abilities. At this time, many people said with righteous indignation, Jie, if you can't even break this basic illusion array, what qualifications do you have to participate in the 10th world selection? Suddenly, a sinister voice rang out from the depths of the illusion array. Come out, you cowardly scoundrel. Come out if you dare. At that moment, an expert half a step into the celestial realm shouted impatiently. He was able to make it here with the cultivation of half a step into the celestial realm. He was also one of the best, and he could even defeat some celestial realm experts whose strength was at the bottom. Whoosh! A burst of black light flashed, breaking through the air from the illusionary matrix. The expert who was half a step to the peak of the celestial being realm, who had been clamoring just now, had his head penetrated on the spot, dying with his eyes open. Many people were shocked. They didn't expect that the people inside the formation would attack as they pleased. They were simply lawless and didn't put them in their eyes at all. Illusory Moon Sect. This must be an illusory formation set up by the people of the Illusory Moon Sect. With our cultivation, we have long become one with the world. How can a mere illusory technique make us so miserable? Only the people of the Illusory Moon Sect can do it. Someone quickly made a guess. However, after figuring out who the mastermind was, they didn't feel relieved. On the contrary, they felt a chill down their spines. Illusion Moon Sect, one of the 28 marquee clans, was extremely tyrannical. If this was the case, then it was not strange. Illusion Moon Sect's illusions were unparalleled among many human forces, and their leader was one of the few illusions masters of the remote antiquity era. Although illusions were a small path in the eyes of many people, they were like sharp weapons in the hands of the disciples of Illusion Moon Sect. If anyone dared to look down on the disciples of Illusion Moon Sect, they would definitely suffer a big loss. The leader of Illusion Moon Sect was ranked among the top experts in the present day with his illusions. To be able to cultivate illusions to such a level, Illusion Moon Sect could be said to have reached the peak. Oh my God! Even the people of Illusion Moon Sect want to fight with us for the quota? What are we going to do then? At this time, some people couldn't help but wail again and again. Although many people knew that they didn't have a chance, there were many heavenly materials and earthly treasures in the world of hegemony. Many people had come with this goal in mind. However, there were also some people who wanted to be lucky. Maybe there wouldn't be such a strong person appearing this time. Then they would have a chance. However, now that they saw the people of Illusion Moon Sect appear here, they couldn't help but feel a little desperate. Although it was only Illusion Moon Sect who knew whether there were experts from other marquee clans or even royal families who had come. Let me tell you, this path has already been blocked. Unless you can break my illusion array, you'd better go back as soon as possible. Don't wait for the screening. If you can't even see through my illusion array, it's useless even if you come. The gloomy voice continued. You're still quite knowledgeable. Let me tell you, go back, go back. At this time, a few other young elites walked out of the illusion array. At this time, they sneered at these people who still couldn't pass the illusion array. They couldn't help but feel a little proud. Damn, you shouldn't be from Illusion Moon Sect, right? Now you've actually surrendered to Illusion Moon Sect and become their dog in exchange for a chance to enter? Someone gritted his teeth and said. They could all recognize that these people's clothes weren't from Illusion Moon Sect. They should be rogue cultivators from other sects who had surrendered to Illusion Moon Sect and were working for him. That's right, shameless. Do you not even want the face of a strong person? Despicable, shameless. I'm so ashamed that I'm on the same level as you. In the face of the angry roars of these rogue cultivators, these people's expressions didn't change in the slightest. The leader, a short and sturdy youth, took a step forward and sneered. What a joke. In my eyes, you're just dogs barking from afar. You really think you're some great people. What kind of occasion is this imperial court struggle? Do you think you're qualified to participate? Now, I want to tell you that your strength is too weak. Even if you can participate, it's just a waste of time. Hurry up and get lost. Right now, the illusion array is only for confusion. If you provoke us, then it won't be as simple as confusion. Yishuan narrowed his eyes. When that person died just now, Yishuan clearly saw that there was no black light at all. It was all an illusion. In other words, the reason why that person died was because he was scared to death. His brain was hinting to him that his head had exploded, and that was why he was pierced to death. In fact, he didn't really make a move. Illusions could be said to have reached the acme of perfection. Even a person with a very firm will would be unable to guard against it. That was because a very ordinary action of theirs would contain illusions. Many people would unknowingly fall into their trap. It could be said to be a very mysterious attack method. Therefore, many people were not willing to offend the people of the Fantasy Moon Sect. That was because if they offended them, then they would fight. There would always be traces left behind. However, if they offended the people of the Fantasy Moon Sect, then they might not even know how they died. However, Yishuan didn't care about it because he had the enlightening mind ancient tree to protect his soul at any time and any place. This level of illusion technique had no effect on him at all. In fact, it would be easily seen through by him, just like a moment ago. This was also a kind of innate ability. If there was no illusion, then the people of Illusion Moon sect would not be a threat in his eyes. Suddenly, at this time, the dense fog of the Jun method gradually dispersed. A figure appeared in front of everyone. It was a tall man about 2 meters tall. He was wearing animal skin clothes and holding a mace. At this time, there was a confused look on his face. He couldn't see through the Jun method. In fact, he didn't even know that he had entered the Jun method. He just kept walking a few steps and then said, "This shouldn't be the case. Why haven't I walked to the top of the mountain?" After saying that, he walked a few more steps. However, in the eyes of everyone, he was simply walking on the spot. He didn't move forward at all. He had been fooled. See? If you don't go, you will be trapped here forever like this blockhead. At that time, let's see what kind of arrogance you have left. The so-called arrogance is nothing in front of illusion, the short and strong young man said with a sneer. At this time, the few people around the short and strong young man also laughed one after another. It was as if they had seen the funniest thing in the world. Ha! This idiot probably doesn't know that he has been trapped in the Jin method until now. Ha! That's right. Zhuang Zhoming Dai is probably like this. I don't know how this idiot came to this imperial court. It's really funny. I have never seen such a stupid person. Look at his clothes. He looks like a barbarian in the deep mountains and forests. These barbarians don't stay in the deep mountains and forests. What do they want to do when they come out? Could it be that they want to come out to gain experience? Ha ha! These people said unscrupulously as if they were laughing at a few animals. Their bad attitude made many people angry. Come out quickly. You have been trapped in the Jun method. At this time, Green Conch shouted loudly, as if she wanted to wake up the tall, big man. It's useless. If our Jun method is so easy to see through, then it is not an illusion produced by Illusion Moon sect. He can't hear you at all, so you'd better give up, the short and strong young man said with a sneer. Chapter 1481. As soon as the stout youth finished speaking, he suddenly seemed to have understood something. He took a step forward and said to Green Conch, "Is this something you can meddle in?" A mere first level of the heaven realm dares to meddle in the affairs of the Fantasy Moon sect. Slap yourself until all your teeth are broken. The sound of inhaling came from all around. Such a ruthless heart. Just because of a word of warning, he had to suffer such a calamity. Merely losing teeth was not a big deal. After cultivating to the heaven realm, they could grow back in a moment. But to slap himself in public, could he still hope to improve his Tao heart in the future? Arrogant. This was the arrogance of the Marquis clan's heaven's pride. If it was just an ordinary disciple of the Fantasy Moon sect, then they naturally would not be so arrogant, or else they would be courting death. But the heaven's pride of the Fantasy Moon sect was naturally different. With the Fantasy Moon sect behind them, they naturally had no scruples in their actions. Sun Zishur and Lu Zifan were also extremely angry, even angrier than when they were facing Wei Tianxiang. Did these Marquis clan heaven's pride really see them as ants? But the surrounding people did not dare to make a sound. The 4 royal clans and 28 Marquis clans had ruled the human race for countless years and accumulated power for a long time. Even if they did not think for themselves, they had to think for the sects behind them. And even if they wanted to stand out, it was useless because they could not even see through this basic matrix. How could they be a match for this heaven's pride of the Fantasy Moon sect? Green Conch's eyes immediately filled with tears. Although she had cultivated for hundreds of years, she had been well protected by her master and senior brothers. She still had an innocent personality and had not experienced much darkness and ugliness. With her identity, being able to cultivate to the heaven realm at a young age, as long as she did not compare with the heaven's pride of the Marquis and royal clans, she would be ranked among the geniuses wherever she went. Naturally, she developed such an outspoken personality. For people like Yi Shiwen who had a good temper, it was fine to be innocent. But for those high and mighty heaven's pride, a little provocation would have to be paid with their lives. Just like just now, although Green Conch exposed Wei Tianxiang's shortcomings, Wei Tianxiang said he would kill, and so he did. And although Yi Shiwen destroyed his killing, didn't his expression change greatly, but in the end, he still did not make a move. Although the royal court was right in front of him, and it was inconvenient to make a move, but the fundamental reason was that he couldn't fathom Yi Shiwen's strength. After all, this world was still a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Only those who had reached a certain level of strength were qualified to be on par with them. Just like the people that Yi Shiwen had encountered before, be it Jiagu Jinghao or Yi Xing. Although they were all arrogant and wanted to kill Yi Shiwen, they regarded Yi Shiwen as an opponent and wanted to kill him. They did not regard him as an ant and trampled on him. The gap between them could not be mentioned in the same breath. I advise you to make your move as soon as possible. If you wait for me to make my move, you won't just end up with broken teeth. The short and strong young man said indifferently. You are also a member of our loose cultivator lineage. Why must you humiliate your own people? Someone could not stop himself from speaking up. One of us? Who's on the same side as you? Don't overestimate yourself. The short and stout young man didn't care at all, as if he wanted to draw a clear line between them. Although in the mouth of the world, they were ranked in the ranks of geniuses, there was still a huge gap between them and these heaven's pride from the Ho royal family. If you don't make your move, then don't blame me. The short and strong young man stopped smiling and immediately turned hostile and shouted at Qing Luo. He turned hostile just like that. It was faster than flipping a book. Make way! But at this time, a soft voice came from the crowd. Then, a figure came out from the crowd. Yi Shiwen turned his head and looked, just in time to see a young man of about 25 or 26 years old slowly walking out, step by step. What made people cast sidelong glances was that the people around him unconsciously made way for him. No matter what position they were originally in, they unconsciously made way for him. Even when he walked in front of the crowd, they didn't realize that someone had passed by them, just like a gentle breeze and drizzle, so that no one was aware of his existence. This young man in his mid-20s had a particularly obvious cinnabar mole between his eyebrows. He had red lips and white teeth. At this time, he just quietly passed through the crowd and directly entered the illusion array. Hey, who are you? Are you courting death? How dare you rush into the illusion array? The short and strong young man saw that the young man actually passed through without any pause, and he suddenly became furious. There was obviously a huge illusion array in front of him, but this person seemed to feel nothing. He just walked over slowly, and then he actually passed through. This array that trapped everyone had no way to hinder him at all. There was not even the slightest hindrance. He just walked through very smoothly. Everyone was shocked. The short and strong young man suddenly stopped and did not disturb the young man to chase after him. He was probably not an ordinary person who could ignore the Phantom Moon Sex array. After this episode, everyone's mood was slightly relieved. After all, it seemed that this array was not without a way to crack it. It was just that their strength was not enough. Just like the young man, he directly walked through without any hindrance. The short and strong young man, who was full of anger, suddenly looked at Green Conch and shouted, "Are you going to slap yourself or not? Let me do it for you." As he said, the short and strong young man moved in an instant. He directly tore the vast sky and suddenly rushed in front of Green Conch. A big hand directly slapped at Green Conch. The whole world seemed to collapse in an instant. The cultivation that belonged to the peak of the third heaven of the celestial realm was instantly released. However, everyone quickly realized that to be able to make an expert of the third heaven of the celestial realm submit, this fantasy moon sex genius must also be very powerful. Boom! With a loud explosion, Sun Zisher made a move. He was also at the third heaven of the celestial realm. In an instant, he stopped the short and strong young man's attack. You dare to stop me? Are you courting death? At this time, the short and strong young man suddenly became furious. He felt that he had lost all his face. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and a terrifying fist power instantly blasted down. Sun Zisher was not to be outdone. Perhaps he was not Wei Tianxiang's opponent, but if his opponent was this short and strong young man, he was not afraid at all. Boom! A terrifying aura swept out. Both of them had already stepped into the third heaven of the celestial realm. Among the rogue cultivators, they were also considered the top cultivation. Ding, ding, ding. Both of them took a few steps back. The short and strong young man became even more furious. Once again, he blasted out a punch. It turned into a sky full of true inner force. The fist power was monstrous, like waves, and it blasted down. Sun Zishu was also an expert in boxing. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and blasted out rays of divine light, sweeping out endless astral wind. Heaven-stabilizing, godly fist. Sun Zishu did not dare to underestimate this short and strong young man. He immediately used the top unique skill of the heaven-stabilizing palace. These two people are so powerful. Although they have not stepped into the fourth heaven of the celestial realm, among the rogue cultivators, they are considered the top existence. Among us rogue cultivators, they are also considered very strong. The truly terrifying one is that Phantom Moon Sect's proud son of heaven. This short and strong young man's cultivation is already not weak, but now he is willing to be his subordinate. This strength, just thinking about it, is shocking. Seeing the two of them attack, everyone had different expressions. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, the two of them exchanged hundreds of moves, but there was no clear winner. Both of them had stepped into the peak of the third heaven of the celestial realm. Both of them could be called the king of this realm. Now that they met on the spot, they were extremely tyrannical. Both of them were masters in boxing. The profound meaning of the fist technique was almost visible to the naked eye. This was the manifestation of the profound meaning, a phenomenon of practicing the fist technique to an extremely profound realm. Their fist intent turned into one picture scroll after another, suppressing the heaven and earth. It was very terrifying. This short and strong young man was really angry, and Sun Zishu had to protect Green Conch, so he could not retreat at all. The two of them did not give way, going tit for tat. Blood splashed out, and bones and flesh flew everywhere. Both of them were injured because both of them had let go and did not hold back in the slightest. Neither of them had a tyrannical body like Yi Shiwen, so it was only a matter of time before they were injured. The two of them finally landed from the sky, looking at each other with unkind eyes. Especially that short and strong young man. He wanted to directly kill Sun Zishu on the spot. However, both of them did not have the intention to continue fighting after being injured. The screening of the 10th realm was about to begin. If they were injured here, it would not be a good thing for the screening later. They were not from the Ho clan or the royal clan. The experts from the Ho clan or the royal clan did not need to participate in the screening at all and could directly enter. Sun Zishu had just stabilized his footing when suddenly, he only felt a surge of energy pouring into his body. His body, which was originally bleeding because of injuries, actually recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. He turned his head and saw Yi Shiwen slightly nodding at him. He could not help but reveal a grateful smile. "You're dead. You're dead. You actually dare to go against the Phantom Moon Sect. You'd better turn around and go back. Otherwise, in the 10th realm, swords and spears have no eyes. You're dead." The short and strong young man said with a mixture of shock and anger. The Phantom Moon Sect's Heaven's Pride expert might have the strength to suppress everything, but it was not him. He could not gain the upper hand just by facing Sun Zishu. Suddenly, his arrogance was reduced a lot. However, he still refused to admit defeat at this time and continued to clamor. "It's just a mere illusion array. Is it really worth it?" Yi Shiwen sneered. He suddenly grabbed with his hand, and in the void, countless spiritual energy began to condense in his hands. The shocking sword energy instantly took shape. Then, Yi Shiwen suddenly waved his hand, and the sword energy rose against the wind and slashed down towards the illusion array on the mountain road. Chapter 1482. Bang! The illusion array above the entire mountain path was destroyed in an instant. It had disappeared without a trace with just one sword attack. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen with a look of horror in their eyes. They couldn't help but wonder where this powerful expert had come from. It wasn't as if no one had tried to destroy this illusion array before. The Heaven's Pride experts of Phantom Moon Sect had said that this was just a very ordinary illusion array. However, it couldn't be destroyed because it had borrowed the surrounding terrain and the world's laws. It was tantamount to going against the world itself. However, Yi Shiwen had easily destroyed this illusion array with just one sword attack. It seemed as if this was just an ordinary illusion array. That short and sturdy young man looked at Yi Shiwen with a look of horror on his face. Where's this place? How come I'm still here? I've obviously reached the top. At this time, that big guy who had been trapped inside finally reacted. It seemed that he was still in the middle of the mountain path. This didn't make sense. His huge head shook. He looked very confused. However, those individual cultivators quickly told this big barbarian about this matter. They had long been displeased with this short and sturdy young man's group. So, they also started to talk about this matter at this time. What? You bastards, you dare to plot against me. That big barbarian suddenly became angry. The mace in his hand moved. His imposing aura was like a mountain as it smashed down with a loud bang. Bang! One of the people in that short and sturdy young man's group didn't have enough time to dodge. His brain burst open on the spot. The scene was extremely bloody. Red and white fluid splashed everywhere. Go, kill him. At this time, that short and sturdy young man became furious and said. However, they didn't need to rush over. The big barbarian roared and rushed over. His mace smashed down. A faint, beastly roar was heard. This mace was snow white in color. It seemed to be made from the bones of an unknown, ominous beast. Its might was very terrifying. It was exuding endless ferocious might at this time. It had shattered the entire void. That big barbarian also reacted. This short and sturdy young man should be the leader of these people. Capture the leader first to capture the followers. That short and sturdy young man saw this big barbarian rushing towards him. He suddenly became angry. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. Bang! He was a master in the art of boxing. So, he had unleashed his martial arts to the extreme. His fist was strong enough to break a mountain and crack a stone. It fiercely collided with the big barbarian's mace. But a loud explosion was heard. Then, the flesh and blood on his fist were visible to the naked eye. His fingers were completely shattered. Then a huge force was transmitted to his body. And his entire arm was broken in an instant. Puff! The stout young man spat out a mouthful of blood. He was seriously injured after just one exchange. His fist could not withstand the terrifying power transmitted from the mace. His fist could not withstand the terrifying power transmitted from that mace. His eyes were filled with fear. At this time, he regretted it very much. He originally thought that he could show off in front of everyone by relying on the pride of the Phantom Moon Sect. He had almost forgotten what kind of place this was. This was the place where the Royal Court contest was held. Although it was only in the 10th world where the individual cultivators resided, there were still many geniuses. There were countless hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Even if the disciples of the Ho and royal clans were not included, there were still many experts among the individual cultivators. Just that Sun Ziji alone was able to fight on par with him. And that green-robed young man had easily destroyed the illusory formation on the mountain path. He wasn't an ordinary person either. Of course, the most terrifying thing was that barbarian. Everyone thought that he was trapped in the formation, so he would naturally not be that powerful. Who would have thought that he was actually powerful to such an extent? The person who was smashed to death by his mace was also an expert at the second heaven of the Heaven Realm, but he was smashed to death without being able to fight back. This kind of thing made him involuntarily suck in a breath of cold air, only feeling that the younger generation was constantly shining. This was an unparalleled enemy, terrifying to an unparalleled extent. At this time, the only thing he could think of was to escape to the top of the mountain, where he would naturally be protected. You want to leave? The big barbarian said in a low, muffled voice, and the mace ruthlessly smashed down on the spot. Bang! The mace directly pierced into his skull, and red and white juice splashed out. His entire body was brought back to his side by the mace, and then the big barbarian tore his body in half. Roar! The barbarian roared at the sky like a terrifying beast, making people shudder just by looking at it. This was a terrifying massacre. Everyone couldn't help but retreat, not daring to approach. This was a ferocious beast in human skin. Even if everyone was very dissatisfied with the short and strong young man, they had to admit that the short and strong young man was very strong. However, he was directly smashed to death by the big barbarian's mace. It was extremely terrifying. The companions of the short and strong young man wanted to escape, but in the face of the big barbarian who had already entered a state of frenzy, there was no way to escape at this time. At this time, they were directly smashed to death by the big barbarian's mace. Good, so strong. What is the origin of this barbarian? How can he be so terrifying? Damn. Is there such a strong individual among us individual cultivators? Darn it, which monster came out from deep in the forest? Suddenly, many people began to discuss like a boiling pot. Many people were shocked by the terrifying strength of this barbarian. However, there were many barbarian tribes in the ancient Barrens continent. It seemed that none of them were particularly outstanding. This was also related to the fact that the barbarian tribes rarely had contact with ordinary people. The barbarian tribes in the ancient Barrens continent were very vast, but mainly in the southern region of the ancient Barrens continent. Especially in the deep mountains and forests, there were many powerful barbarian tribes that had a foothold. As those places were basically inaccessible, there were even many poisonous insects. Ordinary people wouldn't even approach those places. Therefore, ordinary people still had very little contact with the barbarian tribes. They were almost like the human race in another system. Unless they took the initiative to come out, no one would know what kind of prodigies there were in the barbarian tribes. At this time, the big barbarian walked towards Yi Shiwen and grinned at him. It was very ugly, but Yi Shiwen could feel the sincerity in the smile. At least, it wasn't like many people who said one thing and did another. Yi Shiwen also smiled. There was no reason. I just heard that you were the one who broke the illusion array and saved me, said the big barbarian. It's just a piece of cake, said Yi Shiwen. He felt a little strange. Although barbarians had always been known for their tyrannical body, they weren't very good at mental cultivation. However, no matter how bad it was looking at the big barbarian's appearance, he was at least at the 4th level of the heaven realm, with his cultivation base. Even if he couldn't see through the illusion array, he wouldn't be fooled into a group fight. If he really couldn't, he could forcefully break it like Yi Shiwen did. It wasn't complicated because anything could be revealed in the illusion array. However, in the end, it wasn't real. Everything was fake and couldn't withstand any scrutiny. However, this big barbarian's strength was very terrifying. Just based on his body alone, he was probably not inferior to Wei Tianxiang, whom Yi Shiwen had met previously. It was because his performance in the illusion array had been too clumsy. He had actually been confused by the illusion. Other people, even if they couldn't break the illusion array, would quickly react and come out. Only he was trapped inside and played around. If Yi Shiwen hadn't made a move, he didn't know to what extent he would have been played. No matter what, you helped me. If it wasn't for you, I don't know how long I would have been fooled by these few bastards. Motherf asterisk her, this array was arranged by that Phantom Moon sex people, right? See if I don't twist off his head and use it as a chamber pot, said the big barbarian with a sinister smile. Many people in the surroundings felt a chill run down their spine. Twist off the head of a Phantom Moon sex expert? Only a ferocious person could come up with such an idea. This was not an ordinary individual cultivator, but an expert of Phantom Moon sect, an existence ranked in the Ho family. Ha ha ha! Good idea! Yi Shiwen also laughed out loud. Leaving behind an illusion array to obstruct people from going up the mountain was not something a man would do. Yi Shiwen also despised it. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself to you. My name is Ju Yi. What's your name? This big barbarian had no interest in other people at all. Although he had been fooled, he had his reasons. However, these people had been watching from the side for a long time, but didn't they also not know how to advance or retreat? They were just some trash. Yi Shiwen, Yi Shiwen said without hiding anything. Okay, Yi Shiwen, you are my friend for sure, said Ju Yi straightforwardly. At this time, there was a somewhat silly smile on his face. If Yi Shiwen hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he probably wouldn't have believed that this big guy with a somewhat silly smile on his face was the monster that was about to shapeshift just now. A group of heaven-tier experts were almost all slaughtered by him alone. Big guy, they will definitely come to trouble you later. You have to be careful, Green Conch reminded him. Ju Yi also smiled at her in a friendly manner. He also heard that Green Conch had almost lost all her teeth in order to warn him. This immediately made him have a good impression on her. What's there to be afraid of? If they don't come to trouble me, I will trouble them. They actually dared to set a trap for me. I was almost tricked by them. I will twist off their heads and kick them like a ball, said Ju Yi in a bad mood. Chapter 1483. This Ju Yi obviously wasn't a simple person. He could deal with these people by relying on his body alone. So, he wasn't a pushover either. This person's surname is Yi. Is he a member of the Yi clan? Many people thought of this at this time. There weren't many clans among the 4 great royal clans and the 28 great marquis clans. Moreover, the surnames of these clans had long been memorized. The Yi clan was undoubtedly one of the most famous and powerful surnames. Yi Shiwen's name naturally made them think of the Yi clan at this time. Only someone from the Yi clan could be so indifferent at this time. Without the obstruction of the illusory array, everyone went straight to the top of the mountain. They discovered that there was a sea of people at the top of the mountain when they arrived there. There were tens of thousands of people scattered all over the place. These were the top geniuses among the individual cultivators. These people were divided into different positions according to their degree of familiarity. A cyan-clothed woman with a long sword on her back stood in the southeast corner of the square. She stood out from the crowd like a crane in a flock of chickens. A faint aura of swordsmanship had formed around her, isolating people from the crowd. Yi Shiwen could intuitively feel that this was a swordsmanship expert. Moreover, her strength was very terrifying. However, she was different from any swordsmanship expert that Yi Shiwen had seen before. Yi Shiwen had seen many swordsmanship experts in his life. However, most of them had fierce auras. However, this cyan-clothed woman gave him a straightforward feeling. Her appearance could only be regarded as delicate and pretty, but her temperament was extremely outstanding. Apart from this cyan-clothed woman, there was also that 25 or 26-year-old young man who had just calmly passed through the illusory array. At this time, he was occupying a corner by himself. No one dared to go up and make noise. Yi Shiwen looked around the square. There were a few people who were surrounded by the crowd like stars surrounding the moon. Wei Tianxiang was one of them. He stood in the crowd with an expressionless face. He had an arrogant look on his face. He spoke bluntly to these geniuses among the individual cultivators. A group of people had faintly taken refuge in him. However, he wasn't the only one in that circle. Apart from him, there were 2 other people who were also the leaders of the crowd. They weren't inferior to Wei Tianxiang in the slightest. One of them, who was wearing a luxurious robe, had a smile on his face. Although it seemed warm, there was a hint of undisguised pride in his smile. Apart from this young master, there was also a woman in a fiery red dress. Her eyes were like water, and she had a sweet smile on her face. Many of the rogue cultivators in the surroundings were secretly paying attention to this woman. The arrival of Yi Shiwen and the others immediately made the complexion of that young master, who had a genial smile on his face, turn ugly. Li Tianyan, weren't you bragging about how powerful your illusion array was? In the end, wasn't it still broken by someone? Wei Tianxiang said with a sneer. He didn't deliberately lower his voice. Although the scene was very noisy, with the cultivation of the people present, they immediately heard what he said. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. Li Tianyun. So this Li Tianyun is the Heaven's Pride expert of the Phantom Moon sect who laid down the illusory array. For this woman to be able to get along well with the disciples of the Limitless Star Palace and the Illusory Moon sect, she must have an extraordinary background. It's just a coincidence. Li Tianyun snorted coldly, looking at Yi Shiwen and the others with a rather unfriendly gaze. Son of a bitch, you set up the array and tricked me, didn't you? At this time, Zhu Yi couldn't bear it anymore. He dragged the mace in his hand and sneered as he walked forward. Just now, he had been tricked like a gorilla and was holding back his anger. Now that he saw the culprit, how could he not step forward to get back at him? Who are you, savage? Li Tianyun looked at Zhu Yi with some disgust and said arrogantly, the person who wants your life. At this time, Zhu Yi instantly swung the mace. Fast, fast, fast. It was simply fast to the extreme. If one didn't see it with their own eyes, it would be really hard to imagine that someone could wield such a huge mace at such a fast speed. It was simply as fast as lightning. The entire void was smashed on the spot. An endless divine light burst out from the mace. It was majestic. Boom! The entire mace directly hit the ground next to Li Tianyun. The ground within a radius of 100 meters was smashed into powder on the spot, forming a large pit that was several meters deep. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. It should be known that this square was paved with special stones that could even withstand the tearing of space. It was already amazing to be able to leave a crack on it, not to mention smashing 100 meters of ground with a hammer. One could imagine how terrifying this strength was. How? How could this be? How could it be smashed? Green Conch couldn't help but cover her mouth and said with some disbelief, in any case, it should not have been smashed. After all, Li Tianyun did not move at all. No matter what, his accuracy should not be this bad. The movement here immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the square. Daring to make a move in such a place originally meant that one was extremely daring. Yeah, how could it be smashed? Could it be that his eyesight is really bad? This is unbelievable. After being shocked by the terrifying power, everyone was stunned again. It actually missed. Everyone clearly saw that Li Tianyun did not move at all. Obviously, he did not react. The speed of the mace was too fast, extremely fast. No, he did not smash, but he was deceived by his eyesight. Yi Shiwen said, deceived by eyesight? Green Conch said somewhat incomprehensibly. That's right. That mace was so fast that Li Tianyun didn't have time to react. However, he had engraved an illusion array on his body. Anyone who attacked him wouldn't be able to see his original position. That's why Zhu Ye's attack missed. Yi Shiwen said indifferently. At this time, everyone finally realized that Li Tianyun's illusion technique had already been practiced to a very high level. Ordinary people could not see through it at all. There were only a few people present who could see through it. You want to hit me? You are still far from it. Li Tianyun said with a sneer after being shocked. As he said that, his figure gradually disappeared in front of everyone, little by little. Shwa! By the time he reappeared, he was already behind Zhu Yi. He grinned maliciously, and the long sword in his hand instantly shot out. The sword light splashed out in the void, creating countless hard lines. It was like a dream or an illusion. His attack speed was not slow, but the speed of Zhu Ye's attack just now was too scary. The sword chi was cold and murderous, extinguishing all life. Big guy, be careful. Green Conch shouted to remind him, but it was too late. The long sword had already landed on Zhu Ye's body. The fierce sword light directly cut a huge wound on his body. Blood splashed directly on the spot. Zhu Ye's reaction was not slow at all. The mace was like lightning, sweeping out in an instant. He did not care about the wound on his body at all, and slammed towards Li Tianyun. Unexpectedly, it did not hit him again. The mace directly passed through Li Tianyun's body. How is this possible? Many people were surprised again. It did not hit Li Tianyun's body again. This is Phantom Moon Sect's heaven-level cloud body technique. This martial art is rumored to be taken from the clouds. Phantom Moon Sect's disciples who practice the cloud body technique are extremely difficult to kill. Even finding their location is very difficult. Someone immediately recognized this Phantom Moon Sect's heaven-level martial art. Li Tianyun was able to stand out in Phantom Moon Sect. Sure enough, he was not an ordinary person. Although the Ho and royal families had countless resources compared to the individual cultivators, the competition was also more intense. Although the royal and Ho families were hundreds or thousands of times stronger than the individual cultivators, not everyone could enjoy such resources. The competition was even more intense. It was necessary to stand out from more geniuses. It should be said that each had its own advantages and disadvantages. Shua! Li Tianyun's sword was like lightning. Once again, it cut a huge wound on Zhu Ye's body. Blood splashed out. A barbarian like you wants to go against me. Li Tianyun sneered. Yi Shiwen watched quietly. Although he didn't know why Zhu Yi didn't seem to have any spiritual power, otherwise he wouldn't have been bullied so badly. But since he dared to participate in the imperial court struggle, how could he not have any confidence? Sure enough, Zhu Yi was like a titan. He allowed Li Tianyun to continuously leave huge wounds on his body. Although Li Tianyun's sword light was extremely fast, Zhu Yi was always able to protect the most important parts at the crucial moment. Otherwise, he would have died a long time ago. 97 swords. You've cut my body 97 times. One stickhead, you just need to hit me once. Zhu Yi roared. Another wound appeared on his body. His muscles were torn open and blood splashed out. Li Tianyun had succeeded, but his figure was also revealed in an instant. Zhu Yi had locked onto him. The blood splashing out of his body started to burn. A terrifying aura burst out. The mace in his hand seemed to have pierced through the void. In an instant, it directly smashed down. Since I can't find your real body, then I'll break it for you. Zhu Yi roared. The mace in his hand emitted tens of thousands of rays of divine light, directly smashing the entire void. Yes, since I can't pinpoint your exact location, then I'll break it for you. Bang! A figure appeared. It was Li Tianyun. His chest was smashed on the spot. Whoosh! His figure was like a cannonball. He was blasted away on the spot. A shrill, piercing sound could be heard. Bang! 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 Li Tianyun's body hit the ground heavily a few times. Then he rolled to the side. Everyone at the scene was dumbfounded as they watched this scene. Chapter 1484. One hit, it was just one hit. Just as Zhu Yi had said, as long as you slashed him once would be enough to kill you. This was the most ferocious part of it. No one could do anything about it. Li Tianyun was seriously injured in one hit, and Zhu Yi did not continue to chase. He said faintly, "Finally, I've vented my anger." The surrounding people were silent as they saw another peerless savage. Among these rogue cultivators and geniuses, most of them were at the first or second layer of the heaven tier. Even those at the third layer of the heaven tier could be said to be the best among them. Therefore, it was not without reason that Qing Luo was so ambitious in wanting to break through the world barrier. And a master at the fourth level of the celestial realm was definitely enough to dominate the scene. As far as Yi Shiwen knew, the strongest 5 tyrants of the Yi family's younger generation were only at the 5th level of the celestial realm. The previous masters of the demon suppression city hunted down the abominations so that Yi Kuang could absorb them and finally step into the 6th level of the celestial realm. Although it was not known whether Yi Kuang and the others had any breakthroughs in the last period of time, there was no doubt that a master at the 4th level of the celestial realm was already at the top among the younger generation. The fight between the two could be described as thrilling. Whether it was Li Tianyun's cloud body technique or Zhu Ye's exaggerated physical strength, they were all abnormal. If a master at the 3rd level of the celestial realm was at the peak of the early stage of the celestial realm, then a master at the 4th level of the celestial realm had already stepped into the middle stage of the celestial realm, possessing a completely different power. The fight between the two was not too flashy, but each move was fatal. Instead, it was even more terrifying. Do you dare to come out and fight? Just when everyone thought that the fight had just subsided, Wei Tianxiang finally could not help it. When everyone heard Wei Tianxiang say this, they could not help but look at Yi Shiwen. They did not know who this person was. When Wei Tianxiang first came, he had already punished a few guys who did not have eyes. Coupled with his background of limitless star palace, many people had attached themselves to him. And who was this person that actually made Wei Tianxiang personally provoke him? Yi Shiwen sneered, took a step forward and said, "There is nothing to be afraid of." Wei Tianxiang's eyes couldn't help but flash when he saw Yi Shiwen stepping forward. He took a step forward, and a long sword suddenly appeared in his hand. He slashed out with his sword in an instant and turned the rotten into the magical. The void shattered like a mirror, and the world was overturned. It was extremely terrifying. This move did not contain any sword techniques. However, it contained his understanding of the way of the sword. With a single sword attack, even a sky-tier expert would be instantly killed. Although he was not a sword cultivator, his understanding of the way of the sword was still extremely domineering. This sword was extremely fast. Many people didn't even have the time to blink their eyes. They only heard a dang sound. They saw Yi Shiwen's palm turning upwards and directly blocked this sword. The sword light was so fast that it couldn't cut off his palm. It only left a white mark on his hand. Nothing more. Dragon capturing art. Yi Shiwen's hand was instantly wrapped in countless golden lights and transformed into a dragon's claw. Then, it fiercely clawed at the sword light. Boom! The endless sword light was directly clawed into pieces by Yi Shiwen and dissipated between heaven and earth. Yi Shiwen's dragon-capturing art was even more tyrannical than before. So fast, so strong. Everyone was stunned, speechless. They were talking about Wei Tianxiang, and they were talking about Yi Shiwen. Under the circumstances of that kind of sword move, even a third heaven of celestial being realm expert would be dead for sure. However, Yi Shiwen had actually crushed him so casually. This Yi Shiwen has such a strong physical body. Zhu Ye's eyes flickered as he watched from the side. He was extremely excited, as if he had seen a powerful opponent. I didn't expect such a white and skinny guy to have such a tyrannical physical body. TSK, interesting. In addition to Li Yun Tian, who was directly blasted away by Zhu Yi, the woman in the fiery dress, the woman in green, and the 25 or 26 years old woman also looked over. Your physical body is very good, but compared to mine, it's still a long way off. Wei Tianxiang didn't care, and a sneer flashed across the corner of his mouth. You are fighting against me with martial arts moves. I have long since used no moves to win. You can't win against me. He once again shot out his sword, and the sword chi crisscrossed. In an instant, it turned into a sword Tao domain. There were sword light everywhere, and it turned into a monstrous net, directly shrouding Yi Shiwen. This sword slashed through the heaven and earth, and it faintly directly used the power of the law of the Great Way. His understanding of this had reached a level that ordinary people couldn't imagine. Yi Shiwen just sneered and met it with a claw. Boom! The sword light and Yi Shiwen's golden claw collided in the void and suddenly exploded, turning into energy all over the sky. Unexpectedly, no one could do anything to the other. Using no moves to win? It seems that you have gone astray. The essence of using no moves to win is not to stick to one move, but not to completely abandon the move. You have long gone on the wrong path, but you don't know it. What a joke! Yi Shiwen sneered. You are from Limitless Star Palace? You must be very proud in your heart, and you don't put me in your eyes. Well, today I will let you know what it means to be a frog in a well. With your level, you are not qualified to look down on all living beings. However, Wei Tianxiang was a proud person. How could he be defeated by Yi Shiwen with just a few words? He once again took a step forward and stabbed out with his sword. It was still an ordinary move, but it turned the rotten into the magical. The sword light in the void had no trajectory to speak of. In this sword, it actually contained the momentum of the heavenly way. A mighty power was attached to it, and it directly stabbed towards Yi Shiwen. This made Yi Shiwen feel a little brighter. This was almost a real-life version of a kind of matrix, and it was a notch higher than Li Tianyun's. Matrix also used a special law to stimulate the power of heaven and earth, and his sword could actually do it. This was undoubtedly much more brilliant than using his own power. His pride was not unreasonable. However, his eyes only brightened slightly, and his expression didn't change in the slightest. He directly formed a seal. Rippling mountain seal. A huge, ancient seal formed in the void and grew bigger and bigger. Then it crashed down with a loud rumble. The rippling mountain seal directly crushed the sword light and smashed down towards Wei Tianxiang. In an instant, the two of them fought thousands of times, and each time was more tragic than the last. Wei Tianxiang's sword light was getting more and more intense, and the speed was getting faster and faster. Initially, he still had some strength reserved and looked down on Yi Shiwen. However, at this point, he didn't dare to underestimate Yi Shiwen anymore. His offensive was like a tide, and like a violent storm, it crashed down. Yi Shiwen was like a reef in the sea. No matter how violent the monstrous waves were, or how violent the storm was, it would only smash his body into pieces. Wei Tianxiang's sword momentum became more powerful, and his sword light was in line with the trajectory of the Great Way and integrated into the Heavenly Way. Not only the sword light crashed down, but there were also many heavenly fires and astral winds, just like the punishment of the heavens. This kind of heavenly vision could only appear when the Heavenly Way operated on its own. But now, it was chopped down by him. One could imagine how terrifying Wei Tianxiang was. Yi Shiwen was immersed in this battle. He would constantly analyze the mysteries of Wei Tianxiang's attacks with the help of the mysterious space. His battle with Wei Tianxiang was an eye-opener for him. His own strength was tyrannical enough. However, it still couldn't be compared with Wei Tianxiang's battle method of mobilizing the power of the world. As the two sides fought more and more, Yi Shiwen gradually analyzed some things from the mysterious space. His eyes faintly flickered with golden light, and he could see that every time Wei Tianxiang attacked, the tip of his sword would flash with starlight, but it was covered by the sword light. Yi Shiwen suddenly remembered that when old Yi had introduced the major forces, he had once mentioned that the Limitless Star Palace was a sect that absorbed the power of the stars in the sky to temper its fighting strength. In the distant sky, many people couldn't see those distant stars during the day, but these stars were always there. Therefore, the fighting strength of the people of the Limitless Star Palace was extremely tyrannical all day long. Especially at night, their tyrannical strength would double. On the tip of Wei Tianxiang's sword, starlight would flash every time and form a great star matrix. He could use this great star matrix to mobilize all kinds of majestic power between heaven and earth to attack the opponent. It was very powerful, but Yi Shiwen had seen through it. Yi Shiwen saw through it, but he wasn't in a hurry to counterattack. His hands were constantly whispering Wei Tianxiang's attacks, and his eyes were staring at Wei Tianxiang and constantly observing his great star matrix. At the same time, the Wu character in Yi Shiwen's mind also began to blossom with rays of light, and countless martial arts insights suddenly poured into Yi Shiwen's mind. This Wu character was simply the general outline of martial arts, and could even assist the mysterious space in its analysis. Wei Tianxiang saw that his offensive couldn't take down Yi Shiwen, and couldn't help but become anxious. He didn't notice that the starlight had begun to faintly flicker amidst the golden light of Yi Shiwen's sky. In the beginning, it wasn't completely composed of starlight, but it gradually formed a pattern, and it was exactly the same as the faintly discernible starlight pattern on Wei Tianxiang's body. Yi Shiwen had only imitated this starlight pattern, and there was no way to find out the real principle behind it in such a short time. However, this was enough. How is this possible? I'm suppressing people with the might of the heavenly law, and no one has ever been able to persist for such a long time. Wei Tianxiang's face flashed with a bit of surprise. It's only SOSO. Look at my counterattack. Chapter 1485. This Yi Shiwen is unfathomable. He is actually able to withstand such an attack. Many experts of the younger generation couldn't help but turn pale when they saw this scene. Originally, many of them were not interested in Wei Tianxiang and the others. They thought that they were just relying on their family background and nothing special. However, they were almost scared to death when they saw the battle between the two of them. The battle between the two of them was like an antelope hanging its horn. There was not the slightest bit of smoke and fire. It had already surpassed the point of not being restricted by moves. Many people were shocked. They imagined what would happen if they were in either of the two of them. Suddenly, they couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. According to the results of their calculations, if they were in either of the two of them, they would be killed on the spot. There was no other possibility. Both of them are peerless geniuses. They are the top experts of our human race. Only the Ho clans and the royal clans can nurture such exceptional geniuses. Heavens, he only came to the 10th realm because he couldn't compete with the other geniuses. Then just how powerful are the geniuses of the other batches? Heavens, if that's the case, will there still be anyone among us loose practitioners who has the qualifications to fight for a ranking? Many people were wailing. You're only SOSO. Watch my counterattack. Yishuan shouted and said, I have already seen through you. Yishuan directly struck with his palm. Suddenly, the sky was filled with golden palm power that tore apart the heaven and earth. Within the golden palm power, a cluster of starlight flashed, turned into a pattern, and then disappeared in the heaven and earth. Boom! The terrifying palm power crushed down. Wei Tianxiang coldly snorted and slashed with his sword. He wasn't surprised at all. However, what happened next made him turn pale with fright. In the sky, bursts of heavenly fire and astral wind directly blew down. It was as if the world was going to be destroyed. How is this possible? This feeling couldn't be more familiar. It was exactly like when he used his full strength. He used the power of heaven and earth to attack. This was a special attack method of their limitless star palace. Although it was said that after reaching the celestial realm, the experts of celestial realm could mobilize the power of heaven and earth to crush the opponent. However, it was impossible to use the power of heaven and earth to such a degree. This was something that could not happen. This was their limitless star palace's secret technique. If one cultivated it to a very high level, they would be able to borrow an inconceivable amount of power. It was extremely terrifying. However, when this power was released from the opponent's body, it turned into true terror. How could you possibly know this move? Tell me, where did you learn it? Wei Tianxiang was startled and angry at the same time. The sword light in his hand flickered again and blocked Yi Shiwen's palm power. He was extremely angry. Who said that only your limitless star palace has this unique martial art? Yi Shiwen said with a mischievous smile. Nonsense. This is a martial art that our limitless star palace's countless ancestors spent countless years to create. There is absolutely no other sect. Speak. Where did you learn it from? Wei Tianxiang said angrily. You really want to know? Then I'll tell you. Just 10 years ago, I was walking on the street, and an old beggar stopped me. He said that I was full of spiritual energy and that I was a natural martial arts genius. He said that he would give me the task of maintaining world peace. He also took out a bunch of martial arts for me to choose from. What flying star chant? What 9-star ghost steps? What great star luo sword? They were all sold for 5 copper coins each. What a joke. What kind of lousy thing was sold for 5 copper coins each? I just randomly chose one. Yi Shiwen said with a smile. You're talking nonsense, Puff. Wei Tianxiang suddenly spouted a mouthful of blood. He was extremely angry. Mother Kerr, all the martial arts that Yi Shiwen mentioned were the most famous martial arts of their limitless star palace. Every martial art was not easily taught. It could even be said that only the most core disciples could be taught. It was simply impossible for it to be spread out. The limitless star palace would absolutely not allow martial arts to be spread out. Mother Kerr, 5 copper coins each? How could he humiliate my limitless star palace like this? More and more people around couldn't help but burst into laughter. 5 copper coins for a book? Even cabbages wouldn't be this cheap. Moreover, these were the matchless martial arts of limitless star palace. If any of them were to spread out, it would cause a huge commotion and attract countless people to fight over them. Mother Kerr, it would be great if that beggar really existed. I'm really not talking nonsense. Otherwise, why do you think I know the martial arts of your limitless star palace? Yi Shiwen said with a smile. This made Wei Tianxiang even angrier. However, what Yi Shiwen said was also reasonable. Mother Kerr, apart from this extremely ridiculous reason, he also couldn't think of how the martial arts of limitless star palace could spread out. The woman in the fiery red dress giggled. This person was really a bit too much. What 5 copper coins for a book? What powerful spirit energy? What mission to maintain world peace? Do you need to be so funny? No matter what the reason is, you dare to secretly learn the martial arts of our limitless star palace. That's a capital crime. Die. Atone for your sins with your death. Wei Tianxiang suddenly roared. The sword in his hand finally began to not be as pure as before. A terrifying wave of Zhun Yuan boiled from his body. Suddenly, it shocked all directions and swept out in a circle. His entire person was like a demon god, and the word seething with anger was not enough to describe his current fury. Boom! He took a step forward, and the void shattered inch by inch. In an instant, he slashed out with his sword, and countless starlight began to condense. This martial art was the great E-Star Luo sword that Yi Shiwen had ridiculed as 5 copper coins for a book. It's the great E-Star Luo sword. The complexion of the woman in the red dress suddenly changed. She was the first to recognize the power of this martial art. Among the countless martial arts of Limitless Star Palace, the great E-Star Luo sword was undoubtedly one of the most famous sword techniques. Even compared to the sword techniques of sword cultivators, the great E-Star Luo sword was not the slightest bit inferior. In fact, it was even stronger. There were some people who successfully became sword cultivators by using the great E-Star Luo sword. This was very common among the marquis and royal families. They were not limited to one martial art. For example, the Yi family was divided into the main family, branch families, and so on. There were also many hidden sections. For example, the martial battle Heavenly Sword Sect was a branch of the Yi family. It was said that all rivers run into the sea. It was precisely because it was too famous. Otherwise, Yi Shiwen would not have casually announced its name. Today, I will use the great E-Star Luo sword to cut you down. Let's see what else you can say. You still don't dare to announce your name? Wei Tianxiang said coldly. Why wouldn't I dare? Listen carefully. My name is Yi Shiwen. If I say that this martial art is worth 5 copper coins, then it is only worth this price. Yi Shiwen sneered. Yi Shiwen, surnamed Yi. Could it be that he is a member of the Yi family? I finally understand. No wonder he dared to challenge Wei Tianxiang. He also has a marquis behind him. He doesn't need to be afraid of Wei Tianxiang. At this time, many people suddenly became excited. Another marquis had been unearthed by them. For many people, this was a rare piece of gossip. However, for many ambitious people among the loose practitioners, this was undoubtedly an extremely bitter result. There were only so many spots in the Nightmare Realm. First, there was Li Tianyin, Wei Tianxiang, and then there was Yi Shiwen. There was also Zhu Yi from before, as well as the azure-clothed woman, the fiery-colored woman, and that 25 or 26-year-old man. Which one of them was simple? Calculating like this, there were not many spots left for them. This was undoubtedly a huge blow. This was not even considering this. When the time came, there would be other marquis and royal geniuses. It was hard to say how many spots they would be able to fight for in the end. They secretly cursed in their hearts. These damned marquis and royal disciples already had all the advantages and privileges. Was it still not enough? Did they still want to kill them all? Wei Tianxiang was furious. With his cultivation, even among the 4th level of the Sky Realm, it was difficult to meet a worthy opponent. If he hadn't encountered a freak like Yi Shiwen, then even Li Tianyin just now would not have fallen to his murderous hands. Therefore, although Li Tianyin's illusion technique was good, he didn't put him in his eyes. He was just a passable opponent. His goal was to win the championship of the 10th realm and enter the 1st realm as the champion of the 10th realm. He did not expect to encounter a freak like Yi Shiwen. Although he was only at the 1st level of the Sky Realm, he was even more terrifying than experts at the 4th level of the Sky Realm. Wei Tianxiang's sword light burned fiercely in the void, boiling up. Countless rays of starlight seemed to weave into a monstrous net that fell towards Yi Shiwen. The Great Change Star Luo sword was the same as the other martial arts of the Limitless Star Palace. It paid great attention to the use of the star formation. The sword light and starlight converged in the void to form a huge formation. Its power doubled as it fell with a loud bang. What great change, Star Luo's sword! Break it all for me! Yi Shiwen shouted disdainfully. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he actually rushed into the interwoven sword net formed by the great change Star Luo's sword. What, is he crazy? Many people screamed in shock. Everyone could not dodge in time, and he actually rushed in. Sure enough, just as everyone expected, the sword light of the great change Star Luo's sword directly fell on Yi Shiwen's body. Thousands of tyrannical sword lights fell on Yi Shiwen's body, splashing out countless rays of divine light. The endless void shattered, and chaos poured out. Wei Tianxiang, who was furious, did not hold back at all. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen in one breath. In this sky full of starlight, suddenly, two big hands directly penetrated the void and grabbed out, directly grabbing the sword light and starlight in the air. Then, with a sudden tear, the entire sword net was torn open with a loud bang. Then, with a sudden grab, the sword light was caught and destroyed on the spot. Chapter 1486. The sword light and starlight that filled the sky were destroyed by Yi Shiwen, revealing his figure. Wei Tianxiang's the E-Star Luo sword couldn't hurt Yi Shiwen at all. Yi Shiwen's 10th level tyrant body was already so strong that ordinary people couldn't imagine it. With the 10th level tyrant body, even if he encountered an expert at the 5th level of the celestial realm, he could still retreat unscathed. How is this possible? Wei Tianxiang's face was slightly pale. How powerful do you expect him to be with just 5 copper coins worth of martial arts? Yi Shiwen sneered. Wei Tianxiang took another step forward and slashed with the E-Star Luo sword again. This sword covered the entire area. Even an expert at the 4th level of the celestial realm could be seriously injured or even killed, leaving no bones behind. It was very terrifying. Yi Shiwen didn't even try to dodge. Instead, he stretched out his big hand and grabbed all the sword lights in the sky on the spot. Wei Tianxiang's face also showed a look of disbelief. Yi Shiwen's performance was even more ferocious than before. However, he didn't have the slightest intention of retreating. He raised the long sword in his hand and shook his arm. The sword light was like a sword dragon, soaring into the sky and slashing down. In an instant, it had already stabbed in front of Yi Shiwen. He was already a little crazy, but Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change at all, as if he didn't see it at all. At the moment when the sword tip was about to pierce into Yi Shiwen's body, Yi Shiwen kept pointing. Sky severing finger, sky imprisonment form. Boom! The sword light was directly blown apart. At this time, Yi Shiwen finally took a big step forward. Boundless golden waves appeared under his feet, like a golden god. With a single step, he appeared in front of Wei Tianxiang and sent out a palm strike. That boundless palm force gushed down on Wei Tianxiang. Wei Tianxiang was facing Yi Shiwen on the front line, so he could feel Yi Shiwen's terrifying power. A look of horror flashed in his eyes. He couldn't imagine that Yi Shiwen, who was only at the 1st level of the celestial realm, could actually be so strong. Suddenly, endless sword lights were flung out to protect him. Swordsmanship was about advancing courageously and never retreating. However, he could only helplessly use it to protect himself now. One could imagine to what extent he had been forced by Yi Shiwen. The green-clothed woman frowned. There was a hint of disdain on her face. She seemed to despise Wei Tianxiang for improving his sword arts to such an extent. Yi Shiwen stretched out his big hand and passed through the light formed by the sword lights that filled the sky. The sword lights wanted to strangle Yi Shiwen's big hand, but they had no way to shake Yi Shiwen's big hand. They could only watch helplessly as Yi Shiwen's palm directly landed on Wei Tianxiang's chest. Bang! Wei Tianxiang was sent flying on the spot. Yi Shiwen's 10th layer tyrant body was comparable to the royal physique of the dragon race. His palm was powerful enough to pierce through a mountain. Wei Tianxiang's chest was badly mutilated when such a force hit his body. He was sent flying on the spot. Bang! 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 His body fiercely bounced a few times on the ground before finally rolling to the side and stopping. Everyone felt as if their necks had been strangled all of a sudden. They were speechless. They had seen a strong person like Wei Tianxiang being completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen. It seemed as if Wei Tianxiang's martial arts were only worth 5 copper coins. He wasn't Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. For a time, the entire place was silent. No one knew what to say. However, after a short period of silence, the crowd erupted into an uproar. Good, so strong. This Yi Shiwen is simply ridiculously strong. I remember now. This Yi Shiwen, is he on the Hidden Dragon list? After being mentioned, many people immediately remembered. For ordinary people, the Hidden Dragon list was indeed extremely dazzling. Every name could be said to be world famous. However, for these people, it was completely different. They were all the top powerhouses of the new generation. Even if they were not the top powerhouses, they were still much more tyrannical than the young generation. Those who could be on the Hidden Dragon list were at most at the first level of the Sky Realm. The cultivation of the second level was nothing more than that. Compared to them, there was still a huge gap. They would always only pay attention to the 100 names on the Soaring Dragon list. Only these 100 people were the real goal that they pursued. As for the Hidden Dragon list, perhaps they would be qualified to be compared with them in the future. However, it was definitely not now. Their average cultivation time was more than double that of the young generation. This was an ironclad fact. Therefore, many people did not pay much attention to the Hidden Dragon list. Some people even heard about it and did not even remember the name. However, at this time, after being mentioned by this person, the information in the memory of many people gushed out like water. At this time, they finally remembered that Yi Shiwen was ranked 20th in the Hidden Dragon list. Yi Shiwen is only ranked 20th in the Hidden Dragon list. How could he have such strength? Is this year's young generation actually so tyrannical? Many people's faces turned ugly. While they were still desperately trying to catch up with the masters on the Soaring Dragon list, they were unknowingly caught up by the young generation of Hidden Dragon list. Moreover, Yi Shiwen was not the first in the Hidden Dragon list. He was only in the top 20. Did it not mean that there were 19 more powerful people in the young generation than Yi Shiwen? Not to mention the other people who were not recorded in the Hidden Dragon list. There were really great masters blocking the way, and there were newcomers behind. Their days could not go on. However, they didn't know that Yi Shiwen was obviously just a few exceptions. Not everyone on the Hidden Dragon list was as abnormal as Yi Shiwen. However, it was a fact that there were indeed a few abnormal people on the Hidden Dragon list this time. Not to mention that 2 years ago, Fa Wushuang was already able to defeat the Demon Royal Highness who was at the 4th sky of Celestial Realm. Now, no one knew to what extent his cultivation had improved. It had only been a few years. However, Yi Shiwen had made such progress. So, he naturally wouldn't dare to say that the progress of other people was slow. Each of these Heaven's Pride experts was an outstanding talent. Moreover, they had monstrous luck. So, it was normal for them to have earth-shaking changes in a few years. Many people did not know what to say for a while. They felt that it was simply a great shame to be caught up by the younger generation. Yi Shiwen? A bit interesting. The young man in his mid-20s just smiled faintly. He was not frightened by the powerful fighting strength that Yi Shiwen had shown. On the other side, the girl in the green robe with a sword on her back just looked indifferently and did not say a word. However, the eyes of the girl in the fiery dress were flashing. No one knew what she was thinking. Yi Shiwen, you will regret it. You should not have revealed the fact that you know the martial arts of our limitless star palace. After Wei Tianxiang calmed down, he looked at Yi Shiwen with hatred and said, he had never been defeated so miserably before. Moreover, he was defeated by someone whose realm was far lower than his. Even if you defeat me, it is useless. Our limitless star palace will not let you go. Wei Tianxiang said fiercely. Then come on, I will take care of you together. There are many people who do not want to let me go. Yi Shiwen smiled and didn't take it to heart. Although learning the martial arts of the limitless star palace was very troublesome, Yi Shiwen didn't care. He also had the backing of a colossus like the Yi clan. No one feared anyone. These words are very domineering. This friend, you are awesome. I admire you. Ju Yi smiled. He only felt that Yi Shiwen's decisive character was in line with his temper. As for other things, he did not even think much about it. Everyone did not say anything after defeating Wei Tianxiang. However, the way they looked at Yi Shiwen had changed. They had completely changed. Yi Shiwen was originally one of them among the masses. However, he had now obviously surpassed everyone. Just as everyone was still discussing this matter, a wave of violent shaking suddenly came from the sky, and waves of ferocious beast roars came from afar. "Get lost!" There was chaos below the mountain road. A loud roar came from below. Everyone turned their heads and looked. They saw a group of knights riding on horses galloping along the mountain road. Their imposing manner was terrifying. It was as if a raging wave was beating on the shore. Every knight's mount was a dragon horse with the bloodline of a giant dragon. Although they were not pure-blooded dragon horses, as a subspecies of dragon, these dragon horses were naturally not very gentle. Even their teeth were sharp, unlike the teeth of ordinary horses. They were densely covered in scales. Precious splendor flowed on their bodies. They were like a galloping giant dragon. They also had a bit of the pressure of a giant dragon. They were a very divine army. Wherever this group of people passed, a large group of people and horses were thrown off their feet. Many people couldn't dodge in time and were directly sent flying. Those who were sent flying to the side were still fine, but those who were sent flying to the front didn't even have time to dodge and were trampled in a meat paste by the hooves of these horses. Those were all experts at the sky human stage. It would not be an exaggeration to say that their arms could be used to run horses. It was simply impossible for ordinary horses to knock down those experts at the sky human stage. Those dragon horses were also extraordinary Yao beasts at the sky human stage. They were full of murderous intent. One hoof could trample a mountain range to the ground. Only in this way could they trample heaven realm experts into meat paste before they could even react. Who are these people? They are so arrogant. Many people could not help but speak indignantly after they got out of the way. However, they did not dare to attack. These knights were so fierce that they only dared to curse behind their backs. Chapter 1487. These dozen or so horsemen galloped all the way, and in but a moment, they had already rushed to the plaza at the top of the mountain. There were only a dozen or so horsemen, but they suppressed the entire place. That terrifying aura was like the descent of emperors. Hiss! Suddenly, the sound of inhaling cold air could be heard. Many people discovered that these dozen or so horsemen were actually all at the 4th level of the heaven realm, and the person in the lead had even reached the 5th level of the heaven realm. Just these dozen or so horsemen were enough to suppress the entire place and intimidate all directions. Who the hell are these people? How can they be so terrifying? Many people inhaled cold air, and there were also many people who were in despair. If it was just Yi Shiwen and the others before, then it was not much, as there would always be places left. But with these dozen or so horsemen, who could compete with them? Who could compete with them for these places? In the end, wouldn't it mean that all the places would fall into their hands? If that was the case, then what was there to compete for? Everyone instantly began to discuss spiritedly, but the dozen or so horsemen in the field did not have the slightest change. They were cold and emotionless as they looked around, and wherever their gaze landed, there was only death. Cold, deathly still, and one could faintly smell the scent of blood. Look at the emblem on the shoulder of their armor. It's the emblem of the Marquis clan, Wang clan. Someone recognized the clan emblem on the shoulder of the iron clothing they were wearing, and the identity of the people who had come was immediately obvious. It was actually another Marquis clan. Those ambitious people already didn't even have the mood to curse. Marquis clan people appeared one after another, and for them, it was undoubtedly a huge blow. But if others wanted to come, at most one or two would come. This was great. A dozen or so had come in one go. Were they planning to take all the places in the 10th realm? Looking at this, it was clear that they were planning to take all the places in the 10th realm. Although there were also a few other experts at the 4th level of the heaven realm, how could they compare with the Wang clan experts who had already banded together? This is the Wang clan's 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. Someone recognized the identity of these 13 people. Once they were mentioned, Everyone recalled what kind of people the Wong clan's 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders were, and many people couldn't help but shudder. How could it be them? Hiss, I've heard of their names. But didn't they say that they were killing demons in the crack guarded by the Wong family? Ordinary matters would not be able to mobilize them at all. I thought that the Wong family would not mobilize the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry this time. Who would have thought that they would actually appear? This kind of iron-blooded and austere aura was not something that could be cultivated in an ordinary environment. It could only be cultivated in an iron-blooded battlefield. I've heard of the name of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. Rumor has it that the Wong family once selected over 1,000 outstanding young geniuses and formed a group of knights. They were thrown into the crack of the demon world to fight and temper themselves. After a few hundred years, out of the 1,000 geniuses, only these 13 remained. They are known as the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. However, the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry rarely leave the passage to the demon world. Why would they appear here now? Did the imperial court struggle attract them? It doesn't matter if they appear. Why did they come to our 10th world? Could it be that they also want to snatch the quota of our 10th world? In their eyes, the quota of our 10th world is a piece of fat meat. Wuji Star Palace, Illusion Moon Sect, Yi Clan, and Wong Clan have all appeared. The most abominable one is the Wong Clan. How can we still have a way out like this? Many people wailed unceasingly, but it was useless. The people of the Wong Clan were not moved at all. Everyone stared at the people of the Wong Clan with unkind eyes. This was going to provoke public anger. If only one of them came, it would not be a big deal. However, so many experts came. Did they want to occupy the quota of the 10th world in one go? This was tantamount to cutting off the chance of everyone's advancement. Everyone couldn't help but be hostile to them. However, although many people were very unkind to them, there were still many people gathered around them. Many of them were individual cultivator forces that were on good terms with the Wong clan. These individual cultivators were different from the Ho clans and royal clans. The Ho clans and royal clans had stood tall for countless years. Their strength was deep and terrifying. However, these individual cultivators did not have such a deep foundation. Therefore, they could only choose to be on good terms or even rely on one of the Ho clans or royal clans. Only then could they obtain the protection of these Ho clans and royal clans. Yi Shiwen did not care, but soon he discovered that after a few other individual cultivator masters said a few words, the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders of the Wong clan all looked towards Yi Shiwen's direction. Although there were many people around him, Yi Shiwen's intuition told him that the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders were coming for him. Sure enough, it did not take long before the mighty coercion of the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders instantly fell on Yi Shiwen's body. Immediately afterward, 12 powerful coercion also fell on Yi Shiwen's body. The huge coercion directly shook the surrounding people. The coercion had directly materialized and fell on Yi Shiwen's body. Sure enough, they are coming for me? Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. Are you Yi Shiwen? A buzzing sound was forced into the shape of a sound arrow and was directed towards his face. Bang! Yi Shiwen spread out his hands and directly crushed this sound arrow into a ball of air on the spot. His body swayed slightly. This sound arrow was imbued with terrifying power. Ha, how lucky! I originally thought that if you dared to come, I would dismember your body into 1,000 pieces. I did not expect that I would actually meet you here. You better obediently accept your death. Do you know how much your head is worth? One of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders said with a strange laugh. Does this Yi Shiwen have any enmity with the Wong clan? Many people were a bit baffled. They did not know how Yi Shiwen had provoked the Wong clan to actually issue a wanted order. Don't talk nonsense with him. Go kill him. At this time, the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders said somewhat impatiently. The leader's words were like an imperial edict. On the spot, the entire 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders began to rumble and move. Although there were only 13 of them, it looked like thousands of horses and soldiers were galloping, and the entire mountain range was rumbling with a loud rumble. The people in front of them hurriedly dodged, not daring to stand in front of them. Otherwise, it might be a dead end for them. And just when they were halfway through their charge, a terrifying sword light fell from the sky with a loud rumble. The entire void was cut into two halves, and the earth shattered with a loud rumble. The sword light directly fell in front of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders and almost killed all of them. The 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders' faces turned ashen. They were almost cut into two halves on the spot. Even if they had a big heart, almost being killed on the spot was still enough to scare them to death. What should I do? I thought I could kill all of you. At this time, they heard a very lazy voice coming from the void. Immediately after, a lazy figure directly fell from the void. Everyone looked over and saw a middle-aged man with a stubble beard and shabby clothes. If a man dressed like this was seen in other places, people would only think that he was a beggar on the roadside or something. But here, no one dared to look down on him. That sword just now was definitely enough to kill all 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. Among the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders, there was a 5th-level Sky Realm expert and the other 12 4th-level Sky Realm experts. This shabby middle-aged man was especially terrifying. This was especially so for the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. Their expressions were extremely ugly. They simply couldn't imagine what he had just said. He had thought that he could kill all of them. Ever since the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry were formed, they had never been treated like this. What should we do? There are so many people here. Do we all have to squeeze into the 10th realm? The shabby middle-aged man smiled lazily, as if he had a hangover. He glanced at the crowd and looked very ordinary. If not for that sword just now, perhaps no one would have thought that this was a top-notch expert who had concealed his strength. Who is this? So impressive. Could it be an expert from the royal family? Many people asked in surprise. In recent years, the Wong family was definitely an outstanding existence among the 28 marquee clans. To be able to have such power with one sword, in the eyes of the crowd, only a terrifying existence from the royal family could suppress these people from the marquee clans. Who are you? The leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders asked with a cold expression. Who am I? I'm here to reduce the number of people participating in the 10th realm struggle. The shabby middle-aged man said with a chuckle. It's a pity just now. If you all died, it could reduce a lot of people. I can tell you the truth. The 10th realm simply does not need so many people. Therefore, my mission is to reduce your number by at least half. The middle-aged man said with a smile. However, the meaning behind his words made everyone tremble in fear. Half of the participants were actually going to be reduced by half. In other words, a few thousand participants would be eliminated. The people here were all ambitious people who wanted to stand out in the royal court struggle. But because of a single sentence from him, the number of people here was reduced by half. It wasn't a few dozen people, it wasn't a few hundred, it was a few thousand. Who are you? Are you crazy? You actually want to chase us out? Do you know who we are? Do you think we are trash? One of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders roared angrily. Idiot. I am the one who decides everything here. I'm the only one who has the right to decide who has the right to stay and who has to scram. Do you understand? Do you want me to teach you again? Chapter 1488. Idiot, I'm the one who decides everything here. I'm the only one who has the right to decide who has the right to stay and who has to scram. Do you understand? Do you want me to teach you again? The shabbily dressed middle-aged man said with a smile. That member of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders wanted to retort, but was stopped by the leader. Shut up. The leader obviously had a lot of prestige. That member of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders didn't dare to make another sound. I'm sorry, I didn't teach them well, the leader said humbly. I didn't expect there to be a few sensible people in the Wong family. The middle-aged man glanced at the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders and said faintly, if it was just a slight teasing before, then it was a blatant mockery now. However, the expression of the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders only changed slightly before returning to normal. Now, I'm going to tell you that the first round of assessment is about to begin. As soon as the words of the shabbily dressed middle-aged man fell, the crowd went into an uproar. The first round of assessment was about to begin, but they weren't prepared at all. At this time, someone suddenly noticed that there were countless streams of light falling from the sky. "Quick look, what's that?" His voice attracted everyone's attention. Everyone looked up, only to see streams of light descending from the sky. Everyone's attention was attracted. What were those things? Everyone's eyesight was very good, so they had already noticed these streams of light from afar. However, in less than a moment, these streams of light were already right in front of them. At this time, the shabbily dressed middle-aged man said, "Don't blame me for not telling you in advance. These are the number plates for the second round of assessment. There are only 5,000 of them. If you can't grab one, you'll be eliminated. Moreover, the number plates that fall to the ground will all disappear. So, you'd better move faster." Hearing the shabbily dressed middle-aged man's unhurried words, everyone went berserk. What kind of joke is this? How can this round be decided in such a hasty manner? F***, why didn't you say it earlier? You only said it now. Everyone was dumbfounded. After staring blankly for a moment, everyone made a move. The sky was filled with huge hands that reached out to grab the number plate. Don't you think this game is quite interesting? The only purpose of this round is that we don't accept unlucky people, the shabbily dressed middle-aged man said with a smile. If they were notified in advance, then with everyone's strength, it would undoubtedly evolve into a chaotic fight between the strong and the weak. Then, they wouldn't be able to achieve the purpose of the assessment. However, if they were to be notified right now, then it would all be up to fate. If they got a number plate that fall, then it would be for the best. If it were to fall, then many people wouldn't be able to react. Although it couldn't be said that it was completely based on luck, it could also be said that most people could only rely on luck. This was really what he meant when he said that it was a test of luck. Those who were unlucky weren't included in the scope of people they wanted to accept. How do I say this? Presumably, your elders must have told you how important luck is to a warrior. If you don't have luck, then even a peerless genius will die a violent death. And the only way to enhance your own luck is to continuously defeat those peerless geniuses. Defeat those who are similar to you, or even stronger than you, and then plunder their luck. So, you must have heard of this saying. Those who continuously win will have their luck constantly rise, just like a rolling snowball. However, if they fail, then their luck will be sniped and plundered. In the future, it will invisibly cause a lot of uncertainty. But what should we do? We can't see whose luck is stronger, so it all depends on your luck, the ragged middle-aged man said with a smile. And this is also an opportunity for you to plunder other people's luck. Those losers are going to fail anyway. So, they shouldn't mind sharing some of their luck. Losers don't need to have so much luck. Are you kidding me? I don't want to be eliminated here. What kind of deceptive test is this? My luck won't be shared with others. Many people roared. They were the young experts with the most profound cultivation since they were able to arrive here. So, they weren't unfamiliar with the concept of luck. So, they naturally knew that this ragged middle-aged man wasn't joking. Each of them had a profound luck. Although this thing couldn't be seen or touched, it didn't mean that they would agree to share their luck with other competitors. "This is mine, no one can snatch it, bastard. This is really interesting." However, it seems that the old man didn't say that only one can snatch it. "Then come over to me." The woman in the red dress shouted delicately. Then, she conjured a big flaming hand and directly grabbed a large stream of light in the air. Everyone, especially the marshalists around her, was dumbfounded. How could this be? One person could snatch hundreds of number tags in an instant. As for the young man in his mid-20s, he didn't move at all. However, there seemed to be a terrifying suction force on his body, forming a huge cyclone. Then, all the number tags turned into streams of light, with him as the center, and began to fall towards him. At the same time, Li Tianyun, Wei Tianxiang, and the woman in the green dress also began to use their own methods. Just like the woman in the red dress, they all grabbed the number tags one by one. At the same time, the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders also made their moves. Any one of the 13 people was enough to dominate the field. Now that they had joined forces, their power was naturally great. Needless to say, they had directly grabbed hundreds of number tags in their hands. We have to make our move too. Otherwise, they will snatch everything. Juyi laughed loudly and directly made his move. At this time, Yi Shiwen also conjured a big golden hand and directly grabbed those number tags on the spot. His speed was extremely fast. Almost in an instant, he had grabbed hundreds of number tags in his hands. When he was about to take them back, he saw a terrifying aura rising from the sky and directly attacking Yi Shiwen's big hand in the air. Humph! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. His voice turned into a sound arrow and went against that terrifying aura. Boom! A terrifying explosion directly blew countless number tags to the side. The people who originally had a chance to get the number tags immediately roared in dissatisfaction, while the people in other places who originally thought that they had no chance were overjoyed. As the saying goes, plans can't keep up with changes. This was what it meant to say. Luck was something that couldn't be seen or touched. Sometimes there was really no way to explain it. Some people thought that they were very lucky, but they didn't know that misfortunes and blessings were intertwined. Which leader of the 13 iron-blooded eagle cavalry had issued this command? The two sides had only clashed once, not because they had restrained themselves, but because the time was simply too short. They only had enough time to exchange blows once before it was over. In just an instant, the entire competition was over. In just a short period of time, all 5,000 number tags had been divided up. However, when everyone saw this, they suddenly burst into an uproar. Because it was said that there were 5,000 number plates, there should have been 5,000 spots. However, in reality, there were only 1,000 or so people who managed to get their hands on the number plates. The remaining number plates were all snatched away by the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders and the other experts who looked down on the entire scene. With a casual move, they could easily snatch away hundreds of number plates, making it impossible for the others to interfere. Therefore, although the middle-aged man in ragged clothes said that at least half of the people would be eliminated, in fact, a full 90% of the people were eliminated. The remaining people could be said to be less than 10%. Such a large proportion of elimination was simply shocking. How can this be? They snatched all the number tags. This is cheating. This is against the rules. That's right, it's like this. One person actually wanted to take all the spots. Bastard. Everyone criticized one after another. Then, they looked at the middle-aged man in ragged clothes, hoping that he would come out and uphold justice. I don't think I said that we couldn't snatch a few more. Since I didn't say it, it means that it's allowed. The middle-aged man in ragged clothes said with a smile. What? How can this be? Didn't you say that it was based on luck? How can they snatch so many by themselves? Everyone suddenly became angry. They had painstakingly come here. Could it be that they were going to be played like clowns? Because your luck is bad. You just happen to be standing next to them. As I said, this itself is a test of luck. The middle-aged man in ragged clothes gave an answer that made everyone want to vomit blood. Everyone thought about it, and it was indeed like this. Although Yi Shiwen and the others were the leaders and snatched more than half of the number tags, but on the other hand, it could also be said that their luck was bad. Otherwise, why would they stand next to them and get snatched away in the end? In our sect, there are also seniors who participated in the Imperial Court competition. How come I have never heard of this kind of test? That's right. I've never heard of such a ridiculous test. I will go to the Imperial Court to complain about you. Shut up. Indeed, there was no such method in the previous tests. But it's a pity that your luck is bad. This time, I will be your examiner. The middle-aged man in ragged clothes said coldly. Chapter 1489. Luck. It was luck again. This was the only thought in everyone's mind. Bad luck, bad luck. All of them were stunned. Indeed, they had bad luck. If it wasn't for their bad luck, why would they have chosen to participate in this Imperial Court struggle? If it wasn't for their bad luck, why would they have met such a strange examiner? If it wasn't for their bad luck, why would they have stood next to Yi Shiwen and the other freaks, to the extent that they didn't even get a single prize? Luck. All of this in the final analysis could only be described as luck. It seemed it was not wrong. For the first time, they realized that their luck was not ordinary. If not for their bad luck, they wouldn't be in this situation. So if you want to complain, go ahead. I know that many of your masters have elders in the imperial court, but I think it's useless to complain. What kind of place do you think imperial court is? A shelter for trash? You bunch of people who have neither luck nor strength want to enter the royal court to contend for hegemony? You must be joking. The middle-aged man in ragged clothes said bluntly. Everyone was enraged by his words, and they were filled with righteous indignation. However, there was nothing they could do because they were afraid of this middle-aged man's powerful deterrence. They didn't even dare to resist. In front of such a powerful person, what else could they say? Yes, perhaps in other places, they might be a heaven's pride, but in imperial court, in the highest authority of the human race, there were absolutely as many geniuses as dogs. Heaven's pride was everywhere, and any ordinary soldier could be an unknown genius in a certain period. This was the reality of imperial court. It made people's blood boil, but at the same time, it was a very cold truth. The middle-aged man in ragged clothes sneered and looked at them disdainfully. Although this was a test of luck, it also gave them a chance to compete with their strength. However, they didn't have luck, and their strength wasn't enough. Wasn't it reasonable for them to be eliminated? What else could they complain about? They really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and were spoiled rotten by the various forces. What about them? They also didn't get the number plates. It was Yi Shiwen who gave them. At this time, someone said unwillingly. The direction he pointed was where Qing Luo and the others were. Qing Luo didn't get the number plates. It was Yi Shiwen who gave them to her. Otherwise, she would have been eliminated. Did I say I wouldn't allow it? What I'm saying is, those who don't have a number plate will be eliminated. As for how the number plate was obtained, whether it was snatched or distributed, I don't care. The middle-aged man in ragged clothes sneered and said, Moreover, you still don't understand? If I say you're unlucky, then you're unlucky. Why don't you make friends with this kind of people who helped you snatch the number plates? This sentence immediately made everyone speechless. Well, I don't want to talk nonsense with you anymore. Those who are eliminated quickly leave. Don't delay my next assessment. In the face of such a strong examiner, those who were eliminated hesitated for a moment, but did not stay for long and left one after another. They all understood that even if they stayed, it would be useless, and the most terrifying thing was that this examiner could kill people. They had seen with their own eyes that this examiner had almost killed the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. One sword, just one sword. Many people were secretly guessing what his cultivation level was. Some people thought that he had already stepped into the ninth sky of Celestial Realm. Some people thought that he must have already reached the Celestial Realm. But in any case, for them, he was a terrifying opponent that they couldn't match. In the face of such an opponent, the number of people had already become a matter of no importance. After these people left, the middle-aged man glanced at the crowd and said, Congratulations, all of you are lucky enough. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to stand out in the selection just now. Very good. I originally planned to eliminate more than half of the people, but I didn't expect to eliminate 90% in one go, saving me a lot of time, but this is still not enough. What? Still not enough? What does he want? He has already eliminated tens of thousands of people. Is it still not enough? It can't be. Does he want to eliminate all of us? Many people suddenly burst into an uproar, a wave of uproar. Indeed, after experiencing the elimination just now, it could be said that they were shocked and had a lingering fear in their hearts. If their luck was just a little bit worse, would they have been immediately eliminated? After all, they were not like Yi Shiwen and the others who relied on absolute tyrannical strength to pass the assessment. Among them, many people indeed relied on luck to escape this calamity. Could it be that he wants our competition in the 10th world to end before it even starts? Everyone was a little dumbfounded, but after thinking about it, it was really possible. Who knew whether this crazy examiner would do this or not? He even dared to kill geniuses. Obviously, he was a monstrous figure in the imperial court, so killing a few geniuses who had not yet grown up was nothing. Encountering this kind of crazy person, it really depended on luck and the examiner's preferences. All the previous preparations seemed so ridiculous at this time. This middle-aged man in ragged clothes just stood with his hands behind his back, pacing back and forth, and then said, "In any case, the 10th world only has a total of 10 people. This scale of more than 1,000 people is a little too much." Everyone looked at his appearance and couldn't help but feel a little scared. 10 people. He couldn't be planning to limit the number of people to less than 10 in the preliminary selection, right? If this was really the case, then it would be over. Who knew whether this lunatic would do this or not? I think you must be very clear that even if you enter the 10th world, there is no guarantee that this title will belong to you in the end. At that time, there may be experts from other worlds crossing over to fight for the quota. As for why, I think you should be very clear because you are all soft-footed shrimps, you are all soft persimmons. At this time, the middle-aged man in ragged clothes glanced at the somewhat indignant young geniuses and said with a smile, "What? Are you not convinced? In fact, in your heart, you should also be very clear. This is the reality, a very real reality. Aren't there already some people here?" As he said that, he glanced at the 13 iron-blood eagle riders. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a mocking expression. The leader of the 13 iron-blood eagle riders didn't speak, but an ugly expression flashed on his face. For him, this was a completely unbeatable opponent, so he absolutely wouldn't provoke him. That's why there's this sort of pre-selection. You can feel that it's unfair, but it's unfair to begin with. You can only blame yourselves for not having a good master. That's why you have to work even harder. Rather than waiting to be defeated by people from other realms after entering and having your spots taken away in humiliation, it's better for me to stop you here. Even if they're all cowards and failures of other realms, to you, even the failures of marquis clans and royal clans are much stronger than you. Hearing this middle-aged man in ragged clothes, the complexion of the 13 iron-blood eagle riders, Li Tianyun and the others slightly changed, because this examiner had said that they were losers, cowards, and didn't dare to compete in other worlds, so they could only come to the 10th world to try their luck. Even if they were much stronger than the other rogue cultivator geniuses, but it couldn't change this ironclad fact. Only Yi Shiwen's expression was calm. He didn't care at all, because this was not the reason why he came. He had an even more ridiculous reason, because he was late. You must pay attention to the next assessment, because this is not only related to whether you can enter the 10th world, but also whether you can enter the Imperial Court. You should know that the fundamental purpose of the Imperial Court struggle is to select talents for the Imperial Court, and entering the 10th world is only one of the channels. If you can perform outstandingly in the next assessment, then there is hope that you will be favored by some great figures of the Imperial Court. If that happens, then you will be blessed among those who were eliminated before. There may be some who are more outstanding than you, but it doesn't matter, as I said, we don't accept people with bad luck. The ragged middle-aged man said. When everyone heard this, they suddenly felt that the bitterness was over and the sweetness was coming. Originally, there were not many places, and most of the others were just there to serve as bystanders. Their only hope was to be able to excavate some divine treasures in this battlefield, and if they were lucky enough to become one of the 100 people, then they could only dream about it. Unexpectedly, there was actually such an opportunity waiting for them here. Completely different from the group of people who had just left, they simply felt that their luck was simply too good. What's the next assessment? Hurry up and start. Someone already couldn't bear it anymore. The next assessment is to test your understanding of the Great Way. It doesn't matter if your strength is lacking, but we don't want idiots. The ragged middle-aged man said the second no. Naturally, no one who could come here was an idiot. Everyone also knew that it would not be so simple. If it was only to test their understanding of the Great Way, then there was no need to go through so much trouble. All of you sit down, and then show your understanding of the Great Way. Then I will judge whether you are qualified or not. The middle-aged examiner said. Hearing this, everyone did not say anything, and quickly sat down. Boom! 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 A powerful momentum was released in an instant. Thousands of people in the field released their own understanding of the Great Way, forming a pattern of the Great Way above their heads. Chapter 1490. For a time, thousands of Great Path comprehension scrolls soared into the sky, resonating with each other, forming a magnificent scene. Those who could reach here whether strong or weak, could be said to be peerless geniuses. They bloomed the great path comprehension, and this scene was extremely shocking. Because the middle-aged examiner in ragged clothes had not said what level they had to reach in order to pass, everyone did not dare to slack off. They hurriedly released their most powerful comprehension of the great path, so the entire sky was filled with their comprehension of the great path. Among these people, the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders had the most tyrannical comprehension. He joined forces with the other 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders to release a massacre Great Path comprehension. It was as if the sky had turned into a battlefield of massacre, and the sound of killing could be heard. The Great Path diagram of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders occupied a small half of the sky, but there were still a few auras soaring into the sky, contending with the Great Path diagram of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. The first to make a move was the woman in the fiery dress. A Great Path diagram of a sea of fire rose up, firmly blocking the expansion of the Great Path diagram of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders, occupying its own side of the world. Next was Li Tianyun. A dreamlike Great Path diagram swept up, protecting his side of the world. Then it was Wei Tianxiang, who swept out a Great Path comprehension that transformed into a star map. It was as if the entire sky instantly turned into a starry sky, with countless stars twinkling in it. Although he was defeated by Yi Shiwen, in terms of strength, there was no doubt that he was extremely tyrannical. Oomph! The sword behind the woman in the green dress flew up automatically, turning into a giant sword diagram. The parts of the Great Path diagram of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders that dared to come over were all cut into pieces by her. And the 25 or 26 years old man also released his own Great Path comprehension, but it was in chaos, so no one could really see what he was comprehending. And at this time, Zhu Yi also finally made a move. A wild scene swept out in an instant, blocking the Great Path diagram of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders that swept over. The leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders seemed to be specifically targeting Yi Shiwen. Most of his power swept over. The 13 tyrannical experts' comprehension of the Great Tao had joined hands to bombard Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi soon found it very difficult to resist. At this moment, a powerful god with the power of wind and thunder manifested in the void and charged into the blood-red battlefield created by the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. He grabbed out with his huge hand and grabbed the thousands of soldiers and horses, crushing them into a bloody mist on the spot. It was Yi Shiwen. Since he didn't know what this examiner was up to, he didn't dare to hold back. Yi Shiwen's comprehension of the Great Way was extremely shocking, so he couldn't display it. However, the power of wind and thunder was the most extraordinary thing that he could display. He had practiced the devil wings to the peak of the second layer, so his understanding of the power of wind and thunder had reached a level that was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. With the addition of Yi Shiwen, Zhu Yi immediately stabilized his position. At this time, in this area, only Yi Shiwen and Zhu Yi could block the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders expansion. The others were simply not enough. The 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders seemed to have hardened their heart to deal with another group of people in this assessment. Moreover, their method was even more vicious. The Great Path comprehension was the foundation of a martial artist's understanding of the Great Tao. If the Great Path comprehension was broken, then in a short period of time, their cultivation would greatly regress. For a martial artist, was there anything more serious than this? Many people simply couldn't block the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders expansion. In an instant, the Tao diagram was broken, and their whole body flew out like a cannonball. In just a moment, hundreds of people were eliminated. At this time, how could the others dare to hesitate? They quickly joined forces. Although they weren't like Yi Shiwen and the others who had extremely powerful Great Path comprehension, but they weren't ordinary people either. With thousands of people joining forces to protect themselves, it was enough to block the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. And most importantly, the majority of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders' power was crushing down on Yi Shiwen, especially the boss of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. He was constantly crushing Yi Shiwen. Many people raised their eyebrows. In the end, how much hatred was there for the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders to break Yi Shiwen's Tao diagram? There were also some people who knew the news. It is said that Yi Shiwen had killed many Heaven's Pride experts of the Wang family, angering the Wang family. Therefore, the higher-ups of the Wang family secretly issued an arrest warrant for him. As long as they can get his head, they can instantly become rich overnight. It's not as simple as becoming rich overnight. As far as I know, Yi Shiwen has some secret treasures on him. It seems that even those big shots are eyeing him. Before, he seemed to have obtained the yin-yang life and death diagram fragment. That is a treasure that alarmed a demon lord, but in the end, he actually obtained it. Yi Shiwen had become even more mysterious in everyone's eyes after hearing this. Especially, many ambitious people were looking at Yi Shiwen with extraordinary splendor in their eyes. A strange light was flickering in their eyes. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen became the focus of everyone's attention. And at this time, Yi Shiwen didn't have the mind to care about what others were thinking. Instead, he was wholeheartedly resisting the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders expansion of the Tao diagram. The Tao diagram of Iron Blood Expedition suddenly swept over. Thousands of troops and horses roared and rushed towards the giant of the power of wind and thunder that Yi Shiwen had created. This was the incarnation of Yi Shiwen's martial arts comprehension. If it was broken, the consequences would undoubtedly be very serious. The demon wings might directly fall from the second layer of the wind and thunder wings back to the demon wings. Moreover, after this kind of Tao comprehension was broken, it would be extremely difficult to comprehend it again. The intentions of these 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders could be said to be vicious. Yi Shiwen sneered slightly and said in a clear voice, "You guys have a good plan. Unfortunately, if it is a head-on competition of strength, I may not be your opponent. However, if it is just a competition of Tao comprehension, then who is afraid of who?" And at this time, the giant of the power of wind and thunder in the bloody battlefield moved. It blasted out a punch, and countless power of wind and thunder turned into a thunder dragon. The wind dragon intertwined with each other, and like a long whip, it swept out. Those thousands of troops and horses could not even get close to the giant of the power of wind and thunder. They were swept into a mass of blood mist on the spot. This is fake. This was way too fake, wasn't it? Everyone was a little dumbfounded looking at the confrontation in mid-air between the giant of wind and thunder power and the magnificent army in the bloody battlefield. Yi Shiwen had actually blocked the bloody battlefield that had been jointly arranged by the 13 Eagle Riders of the Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. This was like a fake. It was unbelievable. Many people simply couldn't believe that this scene in front of them was actually real. No matter how strong Yi Shiwen was, any one of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders would not be weaker than him. Not to mention that the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders had already entered the 5th level of Celestial Realm. He had suppressed everyone, but he still could not do anything to Yi Shiwen. The giant of the power of wind and thunder that Yi Shiwen had transformed into swept all the way in. The entire bloody battlefield was turned into a mess by him. The Thunder Dragon and the Wind Dragon constantly destroyed this bloody battlefield. They were ruthless and did not have the intention to let go at all. The 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders wanted to take this opportunity to completely destroy his Taoist heart, eliminate him in one fell swoop, and cripple his martial arts. But at the same time, Yi Shiwen also had the same idea. With the grudge between him and the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders, it was unlikely that there would be any room for reconciliation. If he could cripple all of them here, then after he became a cripple, it was unlikely that they would pose any fatal threat to him. Especially the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders, who was at the 5th level of Celestial Realm, was an existence that Yi Shiwen could not match. This was a terrifying existence that could rival the 5 tyrants of the Yi family a few years ago. If the 5 tyrants of the Yi family did not make any progress in these few years, perhaps they would not be much stronger than the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. The deep foundation of this Wang family could be seen at a glance from this. This was not even the powerful masters of the younger generation who often appeared in front of everyone. In terms of comprehension of the Great Way, Yi Shiwen was not the slightest bit weaker than others. With the mysterious space behind him, his comprehension of the Great Way had already reached an extremely profound realm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to fight above his level. The leader of the 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders finally could not bear it anymore. In the middle of the bloody battlefield, a huge phantom of a knight appeared. This was his comprehension of the Great Way. This knight's power shook the world. As soon as it appeared, the entire bloody battlefield became silent. There was no other sound, and behind him, 12 huge phantom knights appeared one after another. Although they were not comparable to the leader of the 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders, but they were also first-class, powerful illusions of the Great Way. They were already extremely impatient. They wanted to break through Yi Shiwen in one fell swoop and destroy his Taoist heart. The charge of the 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders was like an army of thousands of horses. The sky and the earth soared, and everyone's eyes turned to the battle between the two sides. Only the middle-aged examiner in shabby clothes walked into the field unhurriedly. You qualified? You unqualified? 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 With a glance, those who were identified as qualified were naturally very excited, but those who did not pass were even more so, as if they had lost their parents. His speed was extremely fast. Almost with a glance, he could determine that in just a short period of time, more than half of the people had already been seen by him. In the face of such a powerful examiner, even if they had doubts in their hearts, they did not dare to speak out. And regarding the confrontation between Yi Shiwen and the 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders in the sky, he did not even glance at it. It was as if he did not see it at all, or it could be said that he did not care at all. Rumble! The charge of the 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders, in a moment's effort, had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen's giant of wind and thunder power, bringing with it an incomparably terrifying, imposing manner. Chapter 1491. Rumble! Yi Shiwen's wind and thunder giant also began to run crazily. Its speed was extremely fast. Clang! The leader of the 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders pierced the sky with an iron spear in his hand, instantly thrusting towards Yi Shiwen's face. As fast as lightning, the spear tip shattered the sky. Dang! Yi Shiwen's wind and thunder giant directly raised its hand to block. The spear tip directly pierced through the wind and thunder giant's palm, but there was no way for the spear to go any further. And at this time, the wind and thunder giant clenched its 5 fingers into a fist, blasting out a peerless divine fist on the spot. Countless wind and thunder power rushed out, endless murderous intention, terrifying beyond compare. Another Iron-Blood Eagle Rider who rushed over on the spot was blasted away on the spot, directly exploding in the air. The confrontation of the Great Tao was extremely cruel, simply could not tolerate the slightest neglect. In reality, a knight screamed. His Great Tao was seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. Just the first time they fought, it showed that the Great Tao comprehended by Yi Shiwen is superior. What 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders? Nothing more than this. Nothing more than an undeserved reputation. Yi Shiwen laughed. Under his control, the wind and thunder giant once again blasted out a punch. The Zhenyuan violently vibrated. The surrounding heaven and earth resonated. Countless laws began to sweep around him. It was incomparably powerful, like an overlord. The other 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders also had no choice but to use all their strength to resist. After the successful blow, the wind and thunder giant began to retreat. Its speed was extremely fast as lightning, instantly retreated to the top of Yi Shiwen's head, sitting cross-legged, like a thunder god, immeasurably large. And at this time, the middle-aged examiner in ragged clothes walked in front of Yi Shiwen, glanced at him, and said, "You passed." There was a bit of incomprehensible meaning in his eyes, but also a bit of appreciation. Yi Shiwen heard this and immediately withdrew the wind and thunder giant, Releasing the great Tao comprehension in the outside world was very dangerous. Under normal circumstances, it would not be done easily. Only under such circumstances was it possible. Seeing that Yi Shiwen had already withdrawn his comprehension of the great Tao, the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry soldiers resentfully withdrew their scarlet battlefield because it was already meaningless. Soon, the second round of assessment was over. However, among the 1,000 people who survived the first round, less than 800 people were able to pass the second round. There were only a mere 700 people. Is there a problem with our comprehension of the great Tao? Why can they pass, but we can't? Someone asked with dissatisfaction. You idiots, did none of you notice? They aren't just a little bit stronger than you. Your comprehension of the great Tao is only in line with your realm. We don't need such mediocre people at all, and their comprehension of the great Tao has already surpassed your current realm. This also means that their future development prospects are broader than yours. The middle-aged examiner in ragged clothes said disdainfully. These people's faces turned ashen. Mediocre? Ever since they started their cultivation, they had never been instilled with this title. To them, this was simply a great humiliation. However, at this time, they couldn't say a word and could only resentfully leave. The middle-aged examiner in ragged clothes glanced at the crowd and said, "Very good. You have passed the first 2 rounds of assessment and obtained the qualifications to enter the 10th world. Work hard. Don't lose the reputation of the rogue cultivators." After saying that, the middle-aged examiner in ragged clothes didn't continue to talk nonsense. He just stepped into the air and soared into the sky. He flew into the air and pinched down one after another. The sky slowly vibrated, and the void shook violently as if it was boiling. In the void, a huge portal began to slowly appear little by little. From the beginning, it was like an illusory shadow, but little by little, it became a reality. Countless steam gushed out from this huge portal, making it impossible for people to clearly see the true appearance of this portal. Rumble! The entire portal opened little by little, and countless lingqi began to gush out from that world. The lingqi was even denser than the lingqi in the space on the top of the mountain. Many people's faces revealed a joyful look. Not everyone had the confidence to compete for the quota of the 10th world. Many people might have participated in a treasure hunt on the spot. There were many heavenly treasures growing in this world. Obtaining even one of them could be considered as a worthwhile trip. When the entire portal had opened halfway, a streamer of light directly soared into the sky and jumped in. Everyone looked at it and saw that it was none other than the 25 or 26 years old young master. He was stepping on a streamer of light like a legendary immortal and stepped in. Immediately afterward, a shocking sword light soared into the sky and rushed in. Everyone looked again and saw that the green-robed woman carrying a sword had already disappeared without a trace. She had disappeared along with the sword light. At this time, many experts also couldn't bear it anymore. They turned into streamers of light and rushed in. Yi Shiwen, wait for you to go in. That will be the time of your death. Come in if you have the guts. After the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry shot this sentence at Yi Shiwen, he also couldn't help but rush in directly. After a while, almost everyone had left. Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate and rushed into the 10th world with Sun Zishu and the others without hesitation. Although many people were eliminated, Yi Shiwen was surprised to find that Green Conch actually passed and was not eliminated. Yi Shiwen originally thought that the first one to be eliminated would be her. The 10th world was vast and boundless, just like a real world. It was densely covered with high mountains and lofty ridges. In the midst of the endless lofty mountains and lofty ridges, the surrounding demonic beasts had long been driven to extinction. Sun Zishu and Green Conch sat cross-legged at the door. Qi flowed through their bodies. After a long time, the two finally ended this practice. Green Conch looked at the green figure inside the cave and said rather gloomily, "How long is he going to retreat like this?" "It always takes a long time to retreat," said Sun Zishu. After entering the 10th world, Yi Shiwen immediately entered the state of retreat, striving to break into the second level of celestial being realm. With his current cultivation, He was already standing at the peak of the first level of celestial being realm. It was possible to step into the second level of celestial being realm at any time. He was only one step away. But why hasn't Brother Lu come back yet? Could there be an accident? At this time, Green Conch said with some uneasiness, "It shouldn't be. In this 10th world, although there are many dangers, he is not going to any dangerous place. He is just going to explore the way. It shouldn't be that bad," Sun Zisher said with a frown. The reason why they stayed here was naturally to avoid the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. The 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry had just entered the 10th world, and they almost became the most powerful existence in the 10th world, searching for Yi Shiwen's whereabouts everywhere. Although they were not the targets of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry, they were also listed as accomplices in their list, so they had no choice but to hide with Yi Shiwen. Moreover, they were able to enter the 10th world and smoothly pass the assessment because of Yi Shiwen. Without Yi Shiwen, they could not pass this assessment at all. Therefore, following Yi Shiwen was also the safest way to do it. Rumble! Suddenly, there was a rumbling sound in the sky, like the terrifying sound of thunder exploding. Not good. Sun Zisher suddenly reacted and said, looking at the sky. Sure enough, 13 figures appeared in the sky in front of the two. The person in the lead was the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. He was holding a long spear, and the person on the spear tip was none other than Lu Xifan. Brother Lu! Sun Zisher suddenly stood up with his eyes wide open. He couldn't believe that they still found him. Brother Lu! Green Conch also screamed. Ha! As expected, we found him. This brat is stubborn and refuses to tell us where he is even at the moment of his death. Fortunately, we have a secret method to track this person. Otherwise, I'm afraid they would have escaped. Yes, today is the death day of Yi Shiwen. He actually dared to damage my Dao. He's really a dead end. Unforgivable. The arrogant laughter of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry came from the sky. Green Conch, run away. I will hold them. Sun Zisher reacted immediately and said. The three of them were very close. Otherwise, Lu Xifan would not have not revealed their whereabouts even at death. Now, Sun Zisher's first reaction was to let Green Conch leave quickly. Originally, their biggest reliance was Yi Shiwen, but now Yi Shiwen was still in closed-door training. It was impossible for him to come out to fight, so the best way was to let Green Conch escape. Brother! Green Conch exclaimed and said, Hurry up, or we won't be able to leave later. I will stay and hold them. Sun Zisher took a deep breath and said, Found it. It is really here. I saw Yi Shiwen. He is in closed-door training. It is really the will of the heavens to let us find him at this time. He is a dead end, and he is not in a small closed-door training. It is impossible for him to escape easily. He is dead. Sun Zisher flew up directly. His body swayed, and an extremely condensed spiritual ether was emitted from his body. An austere force emerged. He punched out with his fist, and it immediately filled the sky with fist power. The mighty chi strength between heaven and earth covered the sky and swept towards the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. Chapter 1492. Everyone look, this kid actually wants to stop us. It's really ridiculous. Brothers, let's use our actions to tell him how stupid he is. At this time, a knight from the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders rushed out. The iron spear in his hand swept across the sky, and with one thrust, a vision of a bloody battlefield appeared. This was a spear intent crushing down on the spot. At this moment, he was the god of war on the battlefield. Boom! This knight's spear directly broke Sun Zisher's fist momentum. The difference in strength between the two sides was really too big. Although Sun Zisher had stepped into the peak of the third level of the celestial realm, any one of these 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders had already stepped into the peak of the fourth level of the celestial realm. Compared to him, it was simply a world of difference. Boom! The terrible power directly shook Sun Zisher's body. Sun Zisher was shaken by this powerful force and was forced to retreat again and again, constantly gliding in the void. Puff! Sun Zisher spat out a mouthful of blood. He was not an opponent at all, but his eyes were more determined. "Go, green snail, go," he yelled. "Senior brother, be careful." Qing Luo had no time to react and quickly shouted, "Want to leave? It's already too late." That knight's words were transmitted to Sun Zisher's ears from the void. However, he only had time to feel a severe pain spreading in his body. An iron spear had completely penetrated through his body. In front of him was the knight's ridiculing face. He didn't know when the knight had rushed to his front, and Sun Zisher actually did not notice it at all. "You overestimate yourself. You want to stop us with just you?" The knight sneered, and the iron spear instantly began to spin, like a huge meat grinder, instantly crushing Sun Zisher into a cloud of blood mist. "Senior brother." Qing Luo's sharp voice spread out very far. She was completely stunned, watching her most respected senior brother turn into a cloud of blood mist in front of her. For her, it was a huge impact. Kill them all? The leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders glanced at Green Conch and said. The knight immediately pulled the reins of his horse and took the lead to rush towards Green Conch. In the face of the incoming threat, Green Conch acted as if she was about to be killed. She did not have any reaction at all and was about to die tragically under his spear. Xiao! A cyan light flashed across the void. At the critical moment, a huge hand grabbed out. At the critical moment, he pulled Green Conch over. Boom! The knight's spear was like a heavenly pillar as it smashed into the mountain range. Boom! Boundless energy waves spread out. The battle prowess of an expert at the peak of the fourth heaven of Heaven Realm was simply tyrannical and terrifying. The entire mountain range turned into powder. Endless smoke and dust were set off. When the smoke and dust dispersed, the figures of Yi Shiwen and Qing Luo were revealed. Are you crazy? You don't even know how to dodge. Yi Shiwen scolded. If he didn't take action at the most critical moment, perhaps Green Conch could only turn into a cloud of blood mist under the spear. Dead, dead, senior brother is dead. Green Conch murmured, still seemingly in disbelief. Yi Shiwen suddenly became silent. He woke up a little late, so he couldn't save Sun Zisher. Sun Tzu and Shishir came with him, but in the end, only Green Conch survived. He couldn't help but feel a little sad. They were targeted by the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders because of him. Yi Shiwen, you are really here. Go kill him. The leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders looked at Yi Shiwen and said coldly, Go! Yi Shiwen directly grabbed Green Conch's wrist and directly pulled her figure out. Xiao! His figure directly turned into a stream of light and disappeared in the air without a trace. Chase! The leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders ordered and immediately chased after him. The dragon horse that the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders sat on was incomparably spirited. It galloped in the air like thousands of horses and soldiers were galloping. A white cloud rose under its feet, and its speed was extremely fast. It crossed the void, and in an instant, it had already caught up with Yi Shiwen. At this time, Yi Shiwen was carrying someone. Green Conch seemed to be completely scared and did not respond at all. Seeing this, Yi Shiwen knew that Green Conch was completely unreliable and could only rely on himself. At this time, he could only instantly open the demon wings behind him. Like the wings of heaven, his entire figure instantly accelerated a lot. The 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders who were about to catch up with Yi Shiwen could only watch Yi Shiwen disappear in front of their eyes at this time. Iron Spear dazzling the world die. The leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders let out a loud roar. The spear in his hand instantly flew out like a long dragon in the void. It broke through the clouds in the sky and instantly fell down. Bang! The iron spear fiercely blasted into Yi Shiwen's body. Although Yi Shiwen was already at the 10th level of Tyrant Body, his own realm cultivation was too low. It was much worse than the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. The long spear fiercely pierced into Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen's body swayed in the void. His face was pale, and he almost fell down directly. However, Yi Shiwen knew that he must not fall head first. Otherwise, he would be finished. The sound of a phoenix resounded in his body. The Phoenix regeneration technique was used to repair the wound on his body. Although the residual spear chi on the iron spear was difficult to expel, the Phoenix regeneration technique at least ensured that the wound would not continue to expand. At this time, he did not dare to stay any longer. On the contrary, he had to move forward at a faster speed. He desperately flapped the demon wings behind him, and in a moment, he had already escaped from the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Rider's range. Damn, what kind of movement technique is this? How can it be so amazing? The 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders were somewhat dumbfounded as they looked at Yi Shiwen's disappearing silhouette. They were riding dragon horses, and in the blink of an eye, they could travel thousands of miles without any pressure. However, they could only watch helplessly as Yi Shiwen disappeared. His speed had simply reached an abnormal level. Thinking of this, the eyes of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders became colder and colder. Such an enemy was extremely difficult to kill. This also meant that they must be more careful in the future to kill Yi Shiwen. Coupled with Yi Shiwen's amazing growth speed, he was a strong enemy, a terrifying enemy. Next time, they must definitely let Yi Shiwen die without a burial place. Until he really could not feel anyone chasing behind him, Yi Shiwen could finally breathe a sigh of relief and landed on a mountain with Green Conch. After escaping, Yi Shiwen immediately sat down cross-legged. The big hole on his body showed how thrilling the scene just now was. If it was not for his good luck, his spine might have been directly broken on the spot. Little by little, Yi Shiwen expelled the remaining spear chi in the wound. After a full half of the day, Yi Shiwen finally got rid of the spear chi. Dead. Big brother is dead. Brother Lu is also dead. Green Conch was still in disbelief. She sat on the ground with her hands hugging her legs. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be completely lifeless at this time. For her well-protected world, perhaps it was hard to imagine that there would be such a day. Enough! Yi Shiwen walked in front of Green Conch. She did not have any reaction, so he immediately scolded her. Green Conch turned her head and looked at him. After a glance, she turned back again as if she did not care at all. Is this useful? If Brother Sun and Brother Lu were still here, they would not want to see you like this, Yi Shiwen said. At this moment, he also felt bad in his heart, but there was nothing he could do. What do you know? Big Brother and Brother Lu are so good to me. Now they are dead. They are dead, do you know? Green Conch suddenly became a little hysterical. And then, are you going to cry like this until you die? Don't forget, Brother sure died to protect you, Yi Shiwen said unceremoniously. Then what can I do? What can I do? Green Conch said while sobbing, her shoulders shaking slightly. Yi Shiwen looked at her. Even if she had cultivated to the celestial being realm and was well protected, she was just a little girl who had not grown up yet. If it was Yi Qianqian or Hua Menghan or anyone else at this time, they would definitely not have such a posture. Take revenge for him, Yi Shiwen said faintly. Green Conch was able to pass the second round of assessment, which was beyond his expectation. Similarly, it also meant that Green Conch was not like his first impression. At least, she had a talent that was above most people. It was just that she was protected too well and wasted her current wealth. Don't let him die in vain. He is already dead. If you do this, won't he die in vain? Yi Shiwen said. Then what can I do? I am weak, very weak. For the first time, Green Conch realized that she was really weak. The pride of wanting to break through the world barrier had long disappeared. At this time, the cruel reality told her that not only she was weak, even Brother Sun, who she used to regard as the pillar of support, was also very weak. In this world where the weak were prey to the strong, if one did not have enough strength, one could only be trampled on. Yi Shiwen knew this truth. Yi Qianqian knew it. Yi Shukong knew it. Almost everyone knew it. And Green Conch also faced this problem for the first time. Very weak, then become stronger, and then kill them all. I will drag them in front of you. And then you can do whatever you want with them. Blood for blood. This is what I owe you, Yi Shiwen said coldly, and his expression became colder and colder. While Yi Shiwen was healing, the 10th realm also set off a huge wave because of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. Chapter 1493. After the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders failed to encircle Yi Shiwen, it stirred up a bloody storm in the 10th realm. In addition to Yi Shiwen, there was also news of several top experts being ambushed. It caused panic in the entire 10th realm. In the 10th realm, the current 4th level of Celestial Realm was enough to dominate, not to mention a dozen 4th level Celestial Realm experts, plus a 5th level Celestial Realm expert. Such a lineup was enough to dominate the entire 10th realm. As soon as everyone entered the 10th realm, all kinds of killing and ambushes had already begun. In the 10th realm, there were only 10 places, and everyone had a number plate. There was only one way to obtain a number plate, and that was to rob the number plates in the hands of others. The first 10 people who obtained the most number plates would be able to advance. Therefore, after entering the 10th realm, many people immediately turned against each other and attacked each other. Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry because he had already thought about it. When everyone was almost done collecting, and the number plates were also concentrated in the hands of a few people, he would defeat one of them and naturally have a large number of number plates, easily passing through. Therefore, at this time, although the competition had begun to become fierce and intense, the real experts had not made a move. They were all waiting for the final moment to harvest the fruits. Everyone understood that, but the others had no choice but to fight for it. Even if they knew that they might end up benefiting others in the end, this was the only chance for those who were ambitious but not strong enough. If they didn't fight for it now, then they wouldn't even have the qualifications to fight for it in the future. This was the most cruel law of the jungle. The strong could wait until the last moment to make a move because they had such confidence. But with the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders taking action, the waters of the entire 10th realm had been completely stirred up. As long as ordinary geniuses did not happen to encounter them, they would not be killed by them. However, those top experts were found by them and besieged one by one. First, there were a few third heaven experts who had the potential to advance to the 4th heaven of the heaven realm in the 10th realm, but they were found and killed by the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. These were all people who could threaten the position of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. Then, those experts who were already in the 4th layer of the sky human realm were found one by the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. However, facing these experts who had stepped into the 4th layer of the sky human realm for a long time, they were not so impolite. Instead, they gave them two choices: submit or die. As for these people who had been famous for a long time, they were either the top prodigies of the marquee clans, or people who were rarely seen in 1,000 years. How could such people choose to submit? Thus, even though the 13 Iron-Blooded Eagle Cavalry had given them two choices, they practically had no other choice. An intense battle erupted between the two sides. News spread one after another, shocking all the experts in the 10th realm. Li Tianyin was nailed to the ground by the leader of the 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders on the spot. All of his illusions were broken on the spot. Wei Tianxiang's great change star Luo sword had been broken, and he was on the verge of death. He had let him escape, and the woman in the fiery dress had perished on the spot. He didn't have any protective feelings for the fairer sex. Zhu Yi clashed with the leader of the 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders and escaped with light injuries. The azure-robed woman fought with the leader of the 13 Iron-Blood Eagle Riders for a day and escaped with heavy injuries. Her identity was also finally exposed. She was the inheritor of a very mysterious lineage among the loose cultivators. This sword sect had been around for a long time and only had one disciple in each generation. They had very few disciples, but each generation's disciples were extremely powerful. They worshipped the way of nature, but they were also extremely protective. There was once a generation's inheritor who was killed outside. As a result, a group of women wielding bamboo swords came out of seclusion and annihilated the entire sect that killed their inheritor. This was the only time the Yu Maiden Sword had acted as a group, but it was this experience that made the Yu Maiden Sword sect a frightening power that many powers were unwilling to provoke. It was a well-known sword sect among the loose cultivators. It was even rumored that the founder of the sect had once slain a god and left behind an extremely powerful inheritance. However, because the inheritors of the Maiden Sword sect were not very high profile and would only come out after a long time, even though this sword sect was publicly recognized as powerful, very few people knew about it. Otherwise, Qing would have been recognized immediately. However, as time passed, his origins were quickly guessed by others. After all, everyone present was a well-known figure of the younger generation. They were experienced and knowledgeable, and the inheritances and origins behind them were astonishing. There were bound to be a few who knew about his origins. Other than Qing, the identity of the 25 or 26-year-old gentleman was also finally known. He was a top genius among the loose cultivators who had recently risen. People only knew that he was called Yin Fei Chun. As for the rest, they knew nothing. Ever since Yin Fei Chun had started cultivating, he had never tasted defeat. Especially among those in the same cultivation level, he was invincible, so he had made a name for himself. In the encirclement of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders, Yin Fei Chun was the only one who managed to escape unscathed. Even the leader of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders could do nothing to him, not even injure him. He was truly powerful. There were even rumors that Yin Fei Chun had already stepped into the 5th layer of the Heaven Tier, which was why he could escape unscathed from the encirclement of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. These experts were either heavily injured or killed by the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders. Even if Yin Fei Chun could escape unscathed, he could only escape unscathed. He couldn't stop the momentum of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders that seemed to want to unify the world. Facing such a powerful 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders, the entire 10th realm fell into a state of panic. The 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders were clearly not giving others a chance to live. There were only 10 spots to begin with, and the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders still had 13 people. Many people guessed that not only would they seize the spots to enter the 10th realm, they might even break the world barrier and go to other realms to compete. That wasn't impossible. After these top experts either died or went into hiding, there was no one in the Nightmare Realm who could stop the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders from unifying the world. Soon, the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders issued an announcement. Everyone had to hand over their number tags, or else they would be killed on sight. Under this pressure, many people who originally had no ambition obediently handed over their number tags. They had originally come to the 10th realm to search for treasures to improve their strength. Many of them knew that they wouldn't be among the 10 spots, so they didn't hesitate and happily handed over their 10 number tags. However, there were also many ambitious people who didn't choose to hand over their number tags. They were waiting for an opportunity. They wouldn't consider giving up until the very last moment. A month passed in the blink of an eye. During this month, the entire 10th realm was shrouded in a storm of blood. Very soon, whether they chose to submit or to hide and wait for an opportunity, all of them began to tremble under the powerful might of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Cavalry. There was no other sound in the entire 10th realm. After forcefully suppressing the 10th realm, the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders collected a large number of number tags, far surpassing the others. Just as everyone expected, even if the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders took all the spots in the 10th realm, it still wouldn't be enough for them to distribute among themselves. Soon, news came that the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders had broken through the world barrier and entered another realm. Without the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders, many people became even more ambitious. The originally peaceful 10th realm was immediately plunged into a storm of blood again. Although the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders took up a large portion of the number tags, it didn't mean that others didn't have a chance. As long as they had more number tags than the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders after the war ended 2 months later, it would be fine. The examiners would only recognize people's number tags in the end, not the person. This gave some ambitious people hope. Amidst the chaos, the hidden experts who were suppressed by the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders did not take advantage of the chaos to strike. They were either waiting or exploring the secret realms of the 10th realm. They knew very well that this was not the best time to strike. This chaotic scene only lasted for half a month before the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders returned to the other realms. However, compared to the valiant and high-spirited departure, there were only 10 of them when they returned. Moreover, they were all heavily injured. There were still 3 riders who did not return, presumably having died a tragic death in the other realms. Then more news came. It seemed that when the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders were fighting in the 8th realm, they encountered a powerful expert from the royal family. In the end, they suffered heavy losses and had no choice but to return to the 10th realm. For the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders, who had not suffered any losses in a long time, even losing 3 riders was definitely a heavy loss. The return of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders caused the air in the 10th realm to freeze. The originally chaotic scene immediately became quiet. The 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders who had suffered heavy losses in the 8th realm returned to the 10th realm. They increased their control over their number tags and fought everywhere. Anyone who resisted was executed. The entire 10th realm was filled with complaints. Many people were shouting for those experts who could fight against the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders to join forces and take care of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders, returning peace to the 10th realm. These cries were mostly made up of people who were unwilling and ambitious. Basically, no one responded. And before the matter of the 13 Iron Blood Eagle Riders was resolved, even worse news came. The experts of other worlds were about to break through the world barrier and enter the 10th world. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.